Well, hello people of Defend the House and welcome back to another big Roundup podcast. I got it. That's the name.
I think so. I can never remember the name.
I did it.
I believe you.
I don't know what period of time this is. It's like June, July, probably just those 2 months, right?
I think so, yeah.
And we are going to be talking about The Last of Us 2 or Last of Us Part 2, which should be, a nice brief chat. It's a Naughty Dog product. You know what it's like. It's a 10 out of 10. Easy. That should be like 5 minutes. And then we'll go really, really, really deep into Ghost of Tsushima.
Yeah, which, no idea what that game is, aside from it being Assassin's Creed in Japan, which looks pretty appealing. I mean, I've definitely played it already because we're not recording this in 2 different chunks and releasing it 3 months later.
Yeah, well, you don't break the illusion, dude.
Sorry. Anyways.
Before we go into The Last of Us Part 2, we are going to be openly talking about one part of the game which Naughty Dog really wanted to hide away, and that was the format of the game. We assume this video will be going out like a late July, maybe even early August, so if you are into The Last of Us, Naughty Dog, you have most likely played the game at this point and gotten to the thing that we're going to be talking about. It's been online, it was leaked even before the game came out, it's a big talking point of the structure of the game, and I don't even think that it's really a spoiler. I kind of think people should actually know about it before actually buying the game, because it's, kind of a big thing.
I'd say it's a little bit of an MGS2 situation.
Yeah, and when I found out about it, it wasn't like a, oh wow, it was more like,
it was like, yeah.
That, okay.
It was like, I get it.
I guess I'll do that. But what we are talking about is that you play The Last of Us 2 as 2 different characters in 2 halves of the game. You play the first half as Ellie, and the first half as a secondary character called Abby.
Yeah, it's not like the first game where, you play a portion of the game as Ellie, and most of it is Joel. It's like pretty much 50-50 Ellie, Abby.
Yeah. We won't go into who Abby is into a story section, a story part of our review that we're going to leave, further in, so that if anyone is trying to avoid spoilers still at this point, I mean, Jesus Christ, if you're on the internet still trying to avoid spoilers at this time period, like July and August, good luck to you.
Yeah, good luck.
I mean, if you've got this far, you probably shouldn't be listening to a 2-hour chat on a niche gaming podcast about The Last of Us Part 2, but, we'll do it just in case. Just in case. Yeah. But we are going to dive deep into spoilery story discussion. But first, I'm just going to lay out how I feel about The Last of Us, just kind of...
Wait, before you do that, I wanted to mention something really quickly.
Go ahead.
This is a fun fact, a fun lore fact for the DTH lore. Our first ever gaming review chat podcast recording thing was about the original Last of Us.
Oh, yeah.
We recorded it in pretty much right around this exact time of year. In fact, I'm going to go into my archives here.
Did we ever upload that?
And it was recorded as our way to figure out format and also
that's true.
and also like the tech and all that, because we hadn't done it. I have it here. Let's see, it was on July 18th 2013 was when we recorded that.
Wow.
We did not even know each other's names. How adorable is that?
That's so crazy.
And no, it was never released because it is just terrible. I have our raw audio files. Yours is Last of Lumpy. That's how it's named. It's 1 hour and 1 minute long.
Yeah, that's so cute.
I know, it's adorable.
A different time.
Anyways, I remembered that the other night, and I thought it was cute. And I also think it's crazy that it's been 7 years that we've been doing these.
Yeah, I mean that's a good segue because transitions into our opinions of The Last of Us.
Yeah, I want to hear a high-level summary from each of us of how we feel about this video game, because I'm desperate to know. Desperate.
Well, I'm talking about The Last of Us 1. You're talking about The Last of Us 1,
right?
Oh,
sorry. Okay, yes. We're still on the first game.
Oh,
yes.
you want a summary before... Okay. I'm not sure.
No. What were you going to say?
I'm just going to, set how I feel about the franchise, about Last of Us 1.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah.
The Last of Us 1 is my favorite story game of all time. The only thing that's come close is Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm a big character person. That's what really drives narratives for me. We'll see after I've beaten my second PC playthrough of Red Dead. I'm going to have to figure out where it sits next to Last of Us, because I just replayed Last of Us 1. Literally finished it the day before I started The Last of Us 2, so fresh in my memory. And I think The Last of Us 1 still really, really stands up. Which is obviously not surprising, when it comes to video games, stories don't age. It's the tech around it that ages. And I think I said to you on Discord, the only thing that really was getting on my nerves was the zombie combat. There wasn't a lot of options to take them on, really, except for punching them in the face or landing a really difficult headshot on each thing scrambling towards you. You needed a shiv to take out clickers. The zombie combat in The Last of Us 1, when I replayed it, I did not like. And that's all I have to say, because, that will come up.
Yeah. I think the first game is pretty fantastic. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite story ever, but it's high up there, and it was very, very good. And, it was Game of the Year for me that year. It was like number 3 or 4 on the top 10 of the generation list, and I think that still holds true. I remember replaying it on hard when the remaster came out, which was only a year after it had released, and I remember really liking the gameplay in that replay. I remember thinking it was like a really, because I played it on hard, and it was like a really satisfying sort of, survival horror-ish experience. And I replayed it, the last time I replayed it was 2018 for the Facebook video, which is sort of a review of that game. And the story was still really good in 2018.
I think
that was the last time I played it.
I think the human combat actually still holds up to this day.
Okay.
Because they're predictable, they actually sit still for a second. The only problem with the zombie combat was, like, if you missed one bow shot, all hell broke loose. There was no way to reset, the aggro. And it was just frustrating to me. But most of that game, gameplay-wise, actually still holds up. Visuals as well on the remaster, still not bad. Fantastic game.
Yeah, The Last of Us 1 is a great video game.
But it's time to transition into The Last of Us 2. And I have never been more overwhelmed by the amount of notes I've had for a video game we've reviewed ever. Like, I'm sweating looking at all the things.
It is also my longest list of notes for a game. Yeah,
I have so much to talk about.
2,100 words.
I mean, a lot of it is story. So let's start off with gameplay changes.
I want your high-level summary of this game.
The whole game?
How did you feel? I want your very basic summary of how you feel about it.
I am not going to give that to you until story. You're not going to get it.
What the fuck?
You're not, because listen.
Did you like The Last of Us Part 2, yes or no?
I'm not going to say yet. Because to me, The Last of Us is so story dependent that if I say that I liked the game or I didn't like the game, that is going to, give away what I feel about the story. And the story is the divisive part of the review. The gameplay, no one's talking about the gameplay in Last of Us 2. Everyone's like,
They should be, because the gameplay is fucking boring in this game.
Okay, there you go. We'll get there. We'll get there. I just want to tease you.
I just want to say, I want to say it. You don't have to. I don't care. I fucking hated this game.
Hated. I
hated it. Not just the story. I kind of hated everything about it.
Oh my god, this chat is going to be so good. All right, I'll say it. I really like The Last of Us Part 2.
Fuck's sake.
I really liked it. Yep, I
was so bored by this game.
Okay, so let's slow down.
All right, please.
Mm-hmm. So what I do want to start off by saying is that this is the first time I played a 30 frames per second game in 2 years.
Yeah.
And I did manage to acclimatize visually. My brain got used to it. But I've never thought that 30 frames a second had hurt a game before. it's usually been like a cherry on top when I want 60. I'm like, oh, this would be nice in 60. I don't usually think when I play God of War or Red Dead on the PS4, I never was like, oh man, this game's worse because it's in 30.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I want to get your opinion on it because I'm biased, I think, because of how much PC gaming I play. I don't want to talk about my computer, but I don't see 30 very often, let's just say that. And I really struggled for, I'd say, like the first 5 to 6 hours because everything looked like slow motion and all the animations just visually looked really rough to me to begin with. And it's really strange, actually, how much that vanished by the end of the game. But I had to make sure that for the entire, 5 or 6 days I was playing this game, that I didn't play anything else on PC. Because I was scared I would ruin that, me getting used to it.
Yeah. I thought the first 10 or so hours, I struggled a lot to just play the game. Partially due to the frame rate, though I'm definitely not hypersensitive to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've been replaying Red Dead as well, and I've been playing it at 4K and 30, and I'm fine with it. I think most of the time I don't really think about 30 frames per second. I think it was more so the controls for the game that kept hanging me up.
Yes.
For pretty much 10 hours,
mm-hmm.
Which is my playthrough was 20, so that was half the game.
Yeah.
I felt like a bumbling idiot in a way that wasn't fun. Like every fight for the first 10 hours for me felt like it was messy and scrappy and disastrous in a way that isn't fun. I can definitely enjoy when a fight, goes wrong.
Yeah.
And you get to sort of react accordingly, but it was not that. It was like I tried to dodge and I held the button for too long, and then I thought reload was square but it was circle, and then I missed 7 shots in a row because the aiming is impossible. It was stuff like that.
Yeah, I fucking told you on Discord when I was talking about the zombies, and then you were like, oh, you're just so bad at console games, and I was like, no. You don't get it,
I couldn't hit humans in this game either, for 10 hours.
Mm-hmm. So this is interesting.
The second 10 hours of the game, the other half of it, I was a fucking god and just mowing everyone down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So that's going to be difficult for me to give an opinion on because I have the very unfair advantage of literally playing The Last of Us 1 on hard all the way through before I started The Last of Us 2.
Right.
So I was completely used to the controls, how it played. And there is a real sluggishness and a kind of a strange, unnatural prioritization to the combat where sometimes in hard mode, shooting isn't the best option, especially with zombies. Melee really comes first. And just getting used to how to pace the combat, how to move, how the AI works. I could kite the AI around like a puppet master in that game because I was just so practiced, and the AI hasn't really improved that much. It has definitely improved, but it's still pretty manipulatable. Is that the right word? Manipulatable?
Sure. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was thinking is, you remember when Red Dead came out and people talked about how much they struggled to play that game because of the controls and the sort of the animation priority. I never really I never really was bothered by that. I think because the game is super super slow paced, and when you play it at the pace that it sort of wants you to play it at, which is how I wanted to play it, it didn't bother me. But for this was the game that made me sort of think, or made me think I get that feeling from this. Something about, I don't know if it's the animations or the response time or just the control scheme, but something about it just never felt super good to play to me. It just felt a bit
it's got to be the no auto aim, right? It's console.
No, it's not the auto aim stuff, because it's the movement and the time, the queuing up of I hit a button. I don't know. It's when I try to dodge or back up, it's it takes too long for it to happen. I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for me to like objectively give an opinion on the combat because I really came in adapted to some of the nuances and the weirdness of The Last of Us combat. But I liked it. I really liked the combat in The Last of Us. And, you know, it's going to be hard to say if that's biased because of the practice. Most people didn't
Did you like
play...
it in 2?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Last of Us 2. I really liked it in Last of Us 2. There is too much of it. And there isn't enough
too much of it.
Variance in enemies or weapons to kind of pay off the frequency of combat, and like the combat encounters are bigger in this game as well. You get a few encounters where it's like 1 or 2 guys, but most encounters really feel pretty similar when you run into a group of like 7 to 15 people, and it's kind of the same. You're going through the same hoops every time where you're maybe killing like 3 people, and then eventually you either get bored or you fuck up the stealth, and then, you know, gunfire, and it just kind of felt like you're going through the motions a little bit with pretty much all of the combat encounter. I could have done with more zombie stuff, to be honest with you.
I couldn't.
Okay.
20 minutes. Okay, like, you know, the first 2 hours of this game, you're in the wintry area.
Yeah.
And about 15 minutes in, you get to a larger bit where you're stealthing up behind zombies in the opening. And about 30 seconds into that, I was like, oh God, oh no, they haven't done anything. They haven't done anything. And I was like, after 3 minutes of it, I was like, oh my God, I'm so bored of this. Because all you do is walk up behind them, hit triangle, and watch the exact same really long neck slitting or neck popping animation over and over and over again. And that never really changes. I'm surprised at how little they did to the infected combat. Like, it's exactly the same.
Well,
you have your bottles.
You can chuck a bottle at one of them and then stab them. That's new.
Oh, that's true. You're right. You don't have breaking shivs now. You have a perma-shiv.
Perma-shiv as Ellie, not as Abby.
As Ellie, but not as Abby.
And also, oh shit, I forgot. There's one more thing. We got to talk about the dodge.
The dodge is fucking awful and useless.
The dodge does kind of suck, man. It really
it's trash.
Kind of suck.
Oh God, it feels awful.
The problem with the dodge is they did this weird, like, Dark Souls-ish combat, or an attempt at it, where some enemies like have slow wind-up to their attacks, and also some enemies do double attacks, and there's no way of reading if they're gonna do a double attack. It's just, you know, it's not good.
I feel like every one of their games, they've tried to make their melee combat a selling point. I remember it starting with Uncharted 3. You know, I remember, I think the E3 demo, there was like the bar fight, right?
Yeah.
And then Uncharted 4, they improved it even more. And like, it makes for great trailers because it makes for like a really... Of course, everything looks very cinematic. But in practice, in all those games, you just spam the square button. And what they added to it now is you hit L1 and you maybe dodge sometimes. And yeah, the melee combat really did not feel good ever. And there are what, 2 or 3 like sort of mini boss fights that are just based around that melee combat.
Yeah, definitely 2 I can remember. One with Trunchbull, and then one with like this Outlast looking motherfucker.
Trunchbull.
Come on.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And I guess the finale of the game, if you count that. Yeah.
And none of those felt good at all.
Also, you don't really need to dodge that much in this game because you get a lot of materials. The enemies are more equipped with pretty good melee weapons, and you can fix them and upgrade them. So you pretty frequently have a good melee weapon on you, or you just shotgun them in the face. Maybe if you're playing on the hardest difficulty. But I'll just quickly say I was playing on hard, and this game is easy. I
played on normal, and it's extremely easy, obviously.
I never ran out of anything, like bullets, medkits, etc., pipe bombs, whatever. And just, I don't think I died very often in the game either. It's just, it's just not very difficult.
I don't know if I ever died from like a combat encounter. You know, I definitely died from like fucking up a few things, like a button press or I got grabbed or something. But I never ran out of health and died. To go back to the human combat, I think one of the problems I also had with it. So, okay, to be positive for a minute. From the 10-hour mark until about the, like, I don't know, for like 3 to 5 hours after the 10-hour part, after I figured out how to play the game, I actually had a decent time with the human encounters. I thought they were pretty fun. The, like, day 2, day 3 Seattle stuff as Ellie, like the E3 demo, those big encounters, I thought they were pretty enjoyable. Yeah. And I managed to get through them in a way that I found to be enjoyable. You're sort of playing it like, exploiting basic stealth mechanics.
Oh man, the long grass is maybe a little bit too exploitable.
Hiding in that grass for a very long time. But there were like numerous combat encounters sort of in a row where it ended and I was like, that was fun. I was stealthy for a few minutes. Shit went bad. I grabbed a character, took them hostage, did the usual, shoot some guys, sprint around, lose them, and got out of it, and it was enjoyable. And so there were probably 3, maybe 5 hours where I was having a decent time with the human combat. But something that started to sort of bug me is, I don't know if I can hold, I don't know if I want to hold, like, super drag the game for it too much, but the game is trying for realism really in everything it does, right? Or the veneer of really realism, and when a game presents itself as being really realistic and then gives you sort of some freedom in your approach and execution of that realism, games like Metal Gear Solid or Prey, stuff like that, Hitman, when a game starts to be realistic, my brain is like, all right, I'm going to start to try things now. I'm going to start to get experimental because this is trying to be really realistic. And there's a lot of stuff that I tried after that, like 3 to 5 hour mark, for a couple hours where I would get like experimental with the systems, and that realism just sort of goes away when I started to poke at it. Like, there was the big tall enemies that have more health. The first one that shows up, I shot him from about 3 feet away in the head with my revolver.
Yeah,
and he was like, "Oh, okay." And he didn't die, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yes, I had that happen as well. It's weird.
Yeah, it's like it takes you out of it so quickly.
I don't know if I had it happen with the revolver, but I had it with the crossbow and with my normal pistol, where those like big beefy bald guys just took one to the head.
Yeah,
I'm like, what?
And it's like, what year is it? Is it like 2007 still, where this enemy has lots of HP because he's tall and like a bit
the Division.
Beefy? It's the Division, yeah, or it's like Batman Arkham, whatever from 13 years ago. So stuff like that, and then like later near the very end of the game, you get to an encounter where there are chained up zombies, and unless I missed, it is possible that I missed here, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. I tried to shoot those chains.
Oh, right.
And you can't. You have to walk up and hit triangle on them, and it's like, why? Like a bullet would easily break this chain, and I have a suppressor. I should be able to, from a long range, shoot it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And the first time you meet the Scars, there's in the foresty area, there's a guy that they are about to kill, right?
Yeah, I tried to shoot that rope as well.
I tried to save him. I didn't try to shoot the rope. What I did was I tried to very quickly kill the 3 guys that were around him. Yeah. And I did. I killed all of them in like 3 seconds. And he just switched from being alive to being dead. And it's like, so that's the part of the stuff that started to really bug me, was like, it's trying for realism. It was giving me like light MGS5 vibes, especially with, the prone crawling around and crawling under things. And then when I tried to have fun with it and like take advantage of the realism, none of those things worked because it's like they just didn't think of it. I don't know.
It's a movie. You play it their way.
Yeah, and that was a bummer to me.
Yeah.
It was, and then so I went 10 hours, not having a good time. 3 to 5 hours, okay, I enjoyed it. Near the end of those 3 to 5 hours, I get annoyed because I'm trying to be experimental. And then for the last chunk of the game, 5-7 hours, I just was so bored, and it was just like, I'm not going to bother with stealth. Fuck all this. It's so easy to just sit behind cover and shoot everyone in the game in the head and get through the combat encounters in like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And so that's how I did it. And it was, like it's fine as a third-person shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay as a stealth game. But there's just so much of it, and it never really changes.
Yeah.
And you never really get enough interesting tools. And
yeah.
By the 10-hour mark or 12-hour mark, you have everything, and you never get anything new. And even when you switch to playing as Abby, like, all those tools are just like reskinned. You go from having a bow to a crossbow, and it's like, okay, it's still playing pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah.
And
I think
I would have definitely liked to see some expansion, some mixing it up.
Yeah.
Instead of just, it's the exact same for pretty much the entire game.
Yeah. The weird thing is I pretty much agree with you, but I think because I had the contrast of being frustrated with The Last of Us 1 and specifically saying these problems I had with the combat system, and that there was not enough ways to deal with certain situations, I was kind of like elated and excited when I got into The Last of Us 2 and they had delivered what I wanted. You do have ways to get out of aggression. You do have ways to counter zombies more often if you aggro them.
And put a suppressor on the pistol, Joe, just like you asked.
Yeah, I love the suppressor. And I think the reason that obviously helped, not enjoying the combat in one game and then playing a direct improvement of it one day later, that definitely helps. But because I was kind of good at it, I was just kind of destroying people the whole way through the game. And Ellie and Abby are supposed to be these murderous, crazy women, and I enjoyed being that. And I felt immersed in their characters as I was crawling through the grass and popping a head and then grabbing someone and then popping someone else's head and executing them. Then waiting for someone to come around a corner and crushing them with a fucking hammer. I agree with your criticisms, and I'm sure most people have similar criticisms.
I don't know. Like, I've seen people say this is like one of the best playing games they've ever played, and I'm just what?
Some people are silly.
You're right, Joe. Joe, you are so right. Some people are silly.
My only problem, my main problem is just the repetitive nature of it. The encounters, there's not many differences between the WLF and the scars. They whistle and have bows. Wow, it's still the same combat.
It took me until probably the 18-hour mark before I knew the visual difference between the two enemy types.
The scars have all found the same coats.
They all have the same coat, yeah. But the wolves, it took me so long to realize which ones I was fighting when, aside from the whistling. And there's really only, the enemy visual variety is not great. And I can't believe that there's only one single new type of infected in the entire game.
Yeah, there is. And the Shambler Shambler kind of sucks a little bit. He
doesn't do anything.
He does
He's
suck.
Useless.
I do still really like the zombies in The Last of Us. I think the zombies, in the context of the world, they're fun. I like the shroom zombies, these horrible parasitic fungus zombies. I just think they're cool. And with the improved sound design of the clickers, and the crazy improvements to the boomer encounters. Holy shit, the boomers are fucking scary in this game.
Oh yeah, them breaking through walls and stuff is cool. Yeah. But there's only, 2 encounters with them?
Yeah.
But
the Shambler, it bigs up the Shambler in this encounter, and they just suck.
Yeah, you just shoot them like... I would just pull the shotgun out and just one-shot them.
Yeah, or like one Molotov for me and maybe like another...
Yeah.
And a slow... I don't know,
they really didn't add anything.
The design is cool, but they're just like not very dangerous.
Yeah. And the one enemy that I thought was new and interesting was the Stalker, but it turns out they were added in the Left Behind DLC.
It doesn't count. It does count. They were cool, yeah.
they're kind of interesting.
Yeah, they're unnerving. You can't see them through walls, and they pop out and jump scare you.
Yeah, I like the like character design and world lore and execution of the zombies.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're still a unique take on them. I think they're visually interesting, and they're creepy, and the clickers sound amazing and look amazing, and the stalkers also have a really cool design. So I like that part of it, but the actual playing part of it, they were the most boring part of the game for me.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, I'm just shocked that they didn't change it up at all.
Yeah.
And that actually applies to like huge swaths of this entire game for me.
Mm-hmm.
The Last of Us Part 2 is, having not played the original game for a couple of years now, The Last of Us Part 2 feels exactly the fucking same as I remember the first game. Like,
it's a little bit different.
And that really bummed me out because I thought, I don't know, you and I both went into this with very little knowledge of the game. We had seen the demo from a couple years ago, the trailer from like last October or whatever, and then I hadn't watched anything or read anything since. And part of the reason I wanted to go dark was to like see what they changed with the game. And because, the Uncharted 2 to Uncharted 3 leap was incredible. Uncharted 3 to The Last of Us was a huge change. Uncharted 4 was a big step up. Lost Legacy, they sort of, experimented a bit more with like scope and some bigger levels. And I was expecting them to do new stuff, and I was expecting a lot of improvements, and I was like, I wonder what they'll have done with the structure of the game. What will they have changed? And it turns out nothing.
Not nothing. Some
did almost nothing.
Some stuff
to this game.
Melee combat is like changed and looks really cinematic and cool.
What does? Sorry, you cut out there.
Melee combat.
I mean, it looks okay, but it feels like shit.
Yeah, well, unless you just like sneak up and sprint up to someone and hit square, that feels cool. It's very impactful and gross.
I mean, I remember doing that in the first game where you would pull out your crafted melee weapon and you would fuck someone up with a swing, and it was satisfying then, and it's still satisfying now.
Yeah.
I think more what I mean is, that applies to the combat for me, but it also applies to like all the other parts of the game, outside of story.
Okay.
Like, do you want me to just read some of them off for me? I will.
Okay.
Should I? I don't know. Like,
what are you doing? I don't know what you're doing.
Every fucking time you have... Oh my god, Joe. Oh, the box puzzles. Holy shit,
dude.
Oh, the
dumpster?
The fucking dumpsters.
Yeah,
like, I remember being
dude.
bored out of my mind of the dumpsters when I played the original game 7 years ago. And they were really, like... They were, like, hilarious in Uncharted 4. And then at the beginning of Lost Legacy, they look right into the camera and say, "We're done with these boxes." And they were. And then they're back in this game again.
Yeah, okay.
And they're everywhere. I'm
going to counter by saying that I think the other two variants of puzzles in the environments, which is opening the safes and using the rope, I really like those two.
The rope I like.
Yeah.
The rope I think is okay. The safes are...
Come on, they're fun.
The safes... It's 2000, it's last gen still. It's like, oh, there's a safe. Oh, where's the code? Oh, let me turn around and, oh, someone's written it in blood on the wall.
No, there was like mini...
It's like that.
One of them are like mini puzzles at times.
No, they're not. That stuff, like the safes and even the core structure of the quote-unquote environmental puzzle stuff for me, I'm so bored of it.
I like the
as soon as
safes.
as soon as I got to the gate in Seattle in my first session of the game, and it was like, oh, let me figure out how to open this gate, and oh, I climb up here, jump across this one thing, and then have to plug a thing in, and it's like, oh god, they're still doing this.
I I like that puzzle.
I know you do. I know you do because I know you like those things. I knew you would probably disagree, but I remember feeling this way sort of with some parts of like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, where it's just like, I think I'm done with this as game design.
Okay, well, I'm going to backtrack and say that I have your back on the dumpster puzzles. I don't like the door is locked, how do we unlock the door puzzles? Because they're always the same. Climb through a window, crawl under a wall, just walk around until you find something. I didn't like the dumpster stuff. So I'm on your side with those. Okay. But I like the saves.
Yeah, I think I just don't like any of that the so-called environmental puzzles, because they're so basic and they just feel like time wasters to me. Like they're just like, oh, I guess we have to have you do something other than scavenge and murder. Basic. So I guess you will have to look around and find the one thing and do the one thing with that thing to get through to the next area.
But look at the rope physics, dude. Did you see the rope physics?
Yeah.
Damn. That's good.
You throw the rope over the one pole and then swing across it. And
well, maybe you didn't explore, because I got all the saves and there were some tricky ones and some.
I got all the saves as well. Shit. And it was like every save I walked up to it, I just immediately like turned around, and then it was like, okay, there's the code. Got it.
No, there's somewhere like you have to find a phone number and then deduce which part of the phone number you use. There was one where there was two neighbors and you had to find their number.
The neighbor one was the only one that I was like, okay, all right.
There was a few like that.
This one's decent.
You didn't do the saves.
So yeah, I think that's probably my biggest problem with the game outside of the story, is the fact that the whole game structurally feels really old to me. It just feels really, really old, and that I've played it like 5 times already. And it's because I have.
Yeah.
And it's surprising to me. And it's sort of like made, I don't know, there's just a whole bunch of parts of it that just feel like almost parodies of last gen design. Like the safe stuff for me felt that way. The environmental stuff, especially the dumpsters and ladders, felt that way to me. All of the like collectible notes feel that way.
I wonder if this is like a AAA problem of games taking so long to make. This game took 7 years.
They only started working on it after Uncharted 4.
I swear I saw 7 years somewhere.
And it's just like, and all of the like wall graffiti in this game is just like hilarious. And it's like, so yeah, just all the and the combat and the gameplay not changing. It just, the whole structure of it, all the way through, I was just like, yeah, I know what we're doing here. Yep, I finished a combat encounter. That means I'm gonna walk around for a few minutes, and then I'm gonna squeeze through a door, and then someone's gonna grab me. And then there's going to be another combat encounter, and then it's going to be a cutscene, and then I'm going to walk around with a character, and then it's going to be a combat encounter. Like, I think in my review I said I felt like I could set my watch by the pacing and the structuring of the game. And there's a reason for it. It's because I played a bunch of Naughty Dog games, and they've not changed at all.
But we were talking the other day after watching the preview of Ghost of Tsushima. And everything that we saw in Ghost of Tsushima, we've played like 1,000 times. But sometimes you find that stuff comfy and inviting.
Sure, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's my defense. I like the looting in The Last of Us. I like slowly walking around an environment looking for goods that are really vital for my survival in combat. I think on hard difficulty, like it really does incentivize you going out of your way and finding everything that you can. And when I said earlier that I was, full of bullets and stuff, that's because I was really taking my time and looking in every nook and cranny in the environments. And we haven't got there yet, but I really like the openness of some portions of the game. I feel like The Last of Us 1 felt like a little bit like a roller coaster ride. You're just going forward. And you don't really get to be in the world of The Last of Us for very long. And I actually I don't even know if that's a complaint of The Last of Us 1 because the pacing of that game is just so good. But it was just nice to really take your time in The Last of Us world. It feels lived in. The fact that you can choose to go into buildings or not. And some of those buildings are full of fucking zombies and some of them are just empty. I don't know. It just felt more immersive and lived in with this this format.
Probably my favorite thing that they added to this game is breaking the glass to get into buildings.
Yeah.
It makes it feel less like a corny video game where it's like, oh, how convenient. This window is, painted yellow. Instead, you're walking around and I look at a building. I'm like, oh, I can't go in there. And then I remember, oh, right. No, I can break the glass to get in. And I really liked that part of it. And I really liked the only big open area in the game.
Yeah, what the hell? Why was that just gone after that? That was cool.
I have no idea. Like that. Basically after you get through the intro, you go into this very big open area like what we saw in Uncharted Lost Legacy, and there you get to just sort of meander around there. There's not really any enemies. There's a few zombie areas. You get some nice little interactions. There's a really nice like guitar scene. You go into a bank and like find a bank heist that happened and went wrong in the middle of Outbreak Day, which is like a great little bit of environmental storytelling. I like that whole section, and then they never do that again, and it just becomes... I agree that the level design, I think, is actually really good throughout. It's a lot bigger. It's a lot more open. But it's still, after that opening area, it is still just a bigger linear hallway, you know? But, I do agree, the level design is quite good. It's very sort of interwoven, and it's interesting. I felt often like I was getting lost, but also that I never was in the wrong place, if that makes sense. Like I felt like I didn't know where I was going, but I always ended up exactly where I needed to, and I think that's a testament to their level design and how good they are at pulling your attention in one direction, and then you turn around and you see something else and you go that way. This game is like the peak of being good at that, and it's the level design throughout is quite good. I just wish they had more open areas because the pacing of that area was really nice, and I was expecting more of that after Lost Legacy, and it's like they made Lost Legacy and they had made Uncharted or Last of Us 2, and then they were like, oh, we should put one of these in. Oh, just squeeze it in at the beginning here. Because the rest of the game is finished. It sort of feels like an afterthought, which is a shame.
Yeah, it's really strange that you start with the game, you start the game doing a really open environment with a map that you're marking down, and then it just vanishes from existence. I was just waiting for it the entire game to come back.
It's strange that it doesn't.
Not sure what that's about.
Yeah.
I do have a couple of miscellaneous things. You actually very briefly touched on it. This is a thing that no one cares about except for maybe me and you. But I didn't really like the notes in this game.
They're fucking terrible.
I really like the notes in The Last of Us 1. They obviously just give context to the world, lots of mini stories about people's blight and their attempts at survival and the way different people approached it. And there's a few of those in The Last of Us 2, but most of them are just like out of context blogs about war and people being in different conflicts between, the WLF and what was the first one before them that are already dead by the time you get there, Fedra and Scars. And it's just people just reciting like problems and people die, and they're all the same. And
I have written down here, every note is like a copy paste of, I went out for supplies. Oh God, I'm bit. This guy went crazy. I have to kill him. They're all like that.
And until like the last quarter of the game, you don't have a lot of context for all of these factions. So for half the game, I had no idea who they were talking about, what they were talking about. And when I was just playing as Ellie on a revenge quest, I didn't give a shit. I was like, I don't care about these people or their conflicts. And it does become relevant later on, but I didn't know that. So I don't know. It was just weird and not very varied. and they just weren't giving me world building. It was just giving me faction building, and I didn't.
Yeah, and I like reading notes in games.
Yeah.
I think they're sort of corny as like a design trope, but like I still enjoy them when they're good, for sure. Even though they might not make any logical sense for why people are writing things or recording things, but whatever. It's something that I've always enjoyed, and that was just one of the many things in this game that just felt like ancient in its execution and design.
And it was so long as well. Jesus Christ, why are they so long?
I don't know. And they never have anything to say. It's just like, oh yeah, this guy sucks. He's dead now. I guess I suck too. And it's like, yeah, I know you suck because everyone in this game sucks. And every single thing they do with story and notes in this game is just like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Keep going with your miscellaneous things because I have some as well, yeah.
I don't have many. No lock-on with melee combat made trying to fight multiple zombies or enemies like a real pain in the ass. I would like swing at the wrong zombie, and it doesn't have that like friendly programming where if you're fighting one zombie, the other one won't punch you because you're locked into animation with one of them. No, the other zombie will just punch you, and I don't know if you can dodge the other enemy. I don't know. It just doesn't feel good. And there wasn't a huge amount of environmental variance in Ellie's half. It gets a little bit better in the second half, but in the first half, it's just kind of Seattle. Just apocalyptic, run-down, overgrown buildings.
Gray, green, and rain.
Yeah, I guess day 3 has a bit more going on because, you're in a flooded area, and that changes the dynamics up a little bit. And I appreciated that day just because of that. But yeah, just a little bit of, visual... a lack of visual variance in the first half.
The first game was good about mixing it up, I found.
Yeah.
And it's like really... I in my memory, I remember The Last of Us 1 being like a very colorful game. And a surprisingly vibrant view of the apocalypse. But this is just... It's just gray and miserable. And, I get it.
Do you? Do you get it?
I get it. And also, it makes sense for the Pacific Northwest. It's very green and it's very rainy.
Yeah.
But again, I get it. After like 5 hours, I was like, okay, like I could really go for, and they do a good job of sneaking some in there. It's mainly in building interiors. There's like 1 or 2 locations. The aquarium is really nice looking.
Yeah.
The flashback sequence is really great.
Oh, the
visually.
Flashbacks.
But yeah, and it mixes it up a little bit at the end and a little bit at the beginning, but it's not visually varied the way I wanted it to be, which makes sense, but also is a bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
It sort of negatively enhances the sort of, I don't know, just repetitiveness of the combat and the pacing and everything is just like, and we're never changing up the visuals. It just sort of piles on for me.
I'm with you. I think, I'll let you, list off your last remaining miscellaneous items, because when it comes down to the gameplay of Last of Us 2, I don't know. I don't really have as much to say. It was just okay and fine for me. I mostly enjoyed it, found it comfy and easy going, especially after kind of breaking myself in with The Last of Us 1. And, I just enjoyed it. I'm kind of more here for the story stuff than the gameplay when it comes to The Last of Us.
Yeah. Well, and I think, and we'll get into it after I list my miscellaneous things off, but I think also the gameplay, in addition to it feeling really old and boring a lot of the times for me, I was also, in Naughty Dog games, the story and the cutscenes and the set pieces and the moments make it feel like a worthwhile reward for sitting through with the gameplay, even though I think like Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy actually play totally fine and in fact are kind of fun. but they're not amazing. But you know, you put up with the gameplay, even though that sounds harsher than I mean it, to get to the story stuff. And I did not feel that way with this game because this, whatever, we'll get there. Anyways, miscellaneous things. Bite my tongue here. I know you felt this way. Sound design is very good in this game.
Damn, yeah.
My biggest negative with the sound design is that humans have no footstep sounds. It's like Call of Duty all over again. I probably had like 8 times had guys run up behind me and make no noise, and I would start getting meleeed by them. And that felt not great. But aside from that, the sound design is tremendous.
The hunting rifle especially, oof, that sounds good.
Yeah. I remember The Last of Us when I played it years ago. I remember playing it on a surround sound system, and it was like shocking how loud the guns were. And I love that they're still like super loud in this game, and that's good because guns are really fucking loud. Mm-hmm. And
I had to play this game with headphones on because I was worried about my neighbors.
Oh yeah, this is a headphone game for sure.
Yeah.
You know, the clickers you mentioned earlier sound amazing.
Oh my God,
sound design across the board is tremendous.
If we're going technical, we should probably talk about the fact the animation in the game is very, very good.
Oh yeah. The presentation across the board is exceptional. Of course it is. Naughty Dog are the best in the business at it. And the presentation from rendering to animation, everything is top notch for sure. Except for the horse animations, which look like shit.
Yeah, the game looks amazing.
I think Half-Life Alyx broke me a bit on rummaging around in cupboards.
Yeah.
I think prior to Half-Life Alyx, I was more or less pretty bored with it, you know, because it's been around for a long time. And then Alyx was like, yes, there's a lot of rummaging in this game, but it's in VR and it feels really good, and I was there for it, and I loved rummaging in that game. But then now I'm just like, oh my God, there's one cupboard opening animation in this game that is so fucking long. And every time she did it, I was like, I wish I could do this in VR. Anyways,
yeah.
Rummaging is just, it's one of those things where I'm just like,
man, I love it, dude. I can't help it. I just like looting.
I wish there were no animations for it, except for in Red Dead where all the animations are 45 seconds long, and I love it. I don't know, it's strange.
I love looting. I can't help it. I liked it.
Despite all my problems, I did find the game very easy to play in long chunks.
Yeah, me too.
And it's something I put into better words in my review, but like the pacing, as predictable as it is and as sort of boring as I found it, it also is still effective at keeping you engaged, right?
Yeah.
That back and forth, they're still very good at it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I would play it for long chunks, sort of despite everything about the game. I would still play it for long chunks.
Me too.
Is the skill tree stuff, was that in the first game?
Yes.
Pills
yes.
to buy okay, that was, huh? I have no memory of that.
How did it work in the first one? Literally, it wasn't on a linear line. I know it wasn't.
No,
like that.
I wish it wasn't a linear line in this as well.
How did it work? I literally just played it. I can't remember. The Last of Us 2 has taken up too much space in my brain.
Yeah.
Fuck, how did it work?
I don't remember. But anyways, I thought it was new, and then I realized about halfway through, I'm like, no, wait. I remember the pill symbol from the first game.
Yeah.
It has to be. It's not new. There's a lot of trees in there, but you can't. It's linear progression, and I wish it wasn't. I wish it was just pick whichever one you want, because most of them, like, there are entire skill trees that I didn't buy any of because all except one seemed useful, and so I just said, whatever, I won't bother.
I'm just having a quick look because I really can't remember.
Okay.
Oh, it was like categories. You had maximum health, listen mode distance, crafting speed, healing speed,
right,
weapon
and it
sway,
progressed left to right, right?
Yeah, and Shiv Master, which makes so you could directly put stuff into the ones you wanted, which made sense.
Okay, yeah,
More sense.
I wish it was like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or if it was a fully open skill tree, basically.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why it was a straight line when certain things didn't seem that related, except for quite vaguely.
Yeah, it felt it felt very video gamey in a weird way. I like the weapon upgrading stuff.
Yeah.
They're not like super useful, but they're good, and I like that they're there. Was that in the first game? I have no idea.
Yes, it was, yeah.
It was?
Yeah.
What the fuck? God, I don't. Okay. Anyways. I like the in-combat music a lot, especially Ellie's in-combat music. It's like Sicario music, and it's good.
Yeah.
It's like sinister and I like that music. It's good. The sniper sequence as Abby, I almost uninstalled the game during that sequence.
Really? I liked it.
I was so fucking infuriated by it. I died probably 12 times in that section.
Oh, really?
It was so awful.
I had to use 2 health packs, yeah. Didn't die though, mate.
I hated that sequence so much, dude. My God.
But that's the kind of narrative point, is that you're supposed to be like,
fuck you.
You're supposed to hate that guy.
Speaking of what I did like, the Resident Evil section of the game, mwah.
Yes.
The whole lead up. I love any game where you go and it's like, oh, you don't want to go there. It's really fucked up, dude.
Listen,
we haven't even touched that zone.
I think
she's like,
this counts as like story stuff, like gameplay sequences.
Do these count as story? Well,
I think so.
The Resident Evil section was great, and I loved it.
Oh, it was
the build up.
incredible.
I love the payoff. I was laughing and smiling and just thinking, man, this is so great.
Yes.
It's so like obviously the Resident Evil section. It is like so blatant about it, but it works really well, and I really like it.
I'll just quickly say that entire day as Abby was my favorite part in the entire game. I really liked the skyscraper up and then across the bridge.
Oh yeah,
and then down and then the hospital. That was my favorite part of the entire game. I love that day.
I'm just looking. Yeah, we'll talk about some of the other gameplay sequences, like the flashback. Oh yeah, the allies in this game are ass.
Yeah, a little bit, but it didn't bother me because I was doing the murdering myself.
It bothered me. That was part of the realism thing for me.
Right.
That part of that veneer breaking where it's just like, you guys aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
They in stealth they would just like stand up and run around in front of enemies and not trigger anything.
Oh, they did that in The Last of Us 1 a lot, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So again, that's a thing where it's like, I would have hoped they had improved, but they didn't. And then once combat actually opens up, I think they probably killed, from me, across that entire game, maybe 6 enemies. And I was in open combat a lot.
I didn't even notice, I'll be honest. I just wasn't really paying attention.
I know it. I don't know. I just normally don't notice allies. But they really stuck out for me, I think, because of the sort of realism and immersion, and the fact that also the allies were supposed to all be real badasses as well, right? Like even Dina is like, I was killing people when I was 9, and then in combat she's just like doing absolutely nothing.
She is pregnant, dude. Give her a break.
Well,
spoiler.
Yeah.
Oops.
Spoilers. But all the characters, anyways, it was a small thing, and they were always getting in my way. Every time I needed to quickly dip out of somewhere, they were just standing there. And it's not like God of War where he like does this big jump out of your way as soon as you get close to him. They were constantly getting in my way, and that is probably the thing that infuriates me most in a game, is when you have allies that are getting in your fucking way.
Yeah, that did happen to me a few times.
It happened a lot. Thankfully, they're like the allies. I was gonna say they're not in it much, but I don't know. Maybe they actually are. It's probably close to half the game where you have allies. But yeah, it got on my nerves a lot. And I think that's it.
Okay.
I think
to surmise before we move on, I did mostly really enjoy the combat. I'm obviously a bit more tolerant of older gameplay tropes. I'm just kind of a sucker for some of the things that Naughty Dog does. I like slowly exploring menial puzzles and scavenging. And I was capable of the combat after, 10, 12 hours of practice with Last of Us 1, so I was kicking ass. And I found it satisfying. I never really had problems with the combat. And I just mostly had a fine time with the combat. It didn't get in my way.
Yeah, and I would say for me, I had more or less the opposite. it was just sort of the game that I think broke me on the Naughty Dog formula, and I've just had enough of it. And I think games have, like, this gen has seen a lot of really, really cool, design changes and innovation, and it felt like it was, how Red Dead felt like it was made in a vacuum, right? And in a way that is kind of amazing. Last of Us feels like it was made in a vacuum in a way that feels that turned negative for me. Okay. Where it's like they made it in the Naughty Dog vacuum, and the only things that Naughty Dog were able to reference are their own last three games, and it's like, it's like they ignored all the things that have been happening with game design this gen and just made the exact same game again after 7 years. And I was genuinely had very high expectations and was hoping for a lot of to see a lot of interesting changes, and there just weren't, and that was a big disappointment. And I think parts of it I enjoyed. Half of it I would say I was really bored, and then like 30% of it I would say I actively disliked. So that's my breakdown.
Okay. I mean
50, 30, 20. I remembered one other thing that I just wanted to shout out before we got to story.
Okay.
I just wanted to shout out the accessibility options menu, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a spot to squeeze it in to the review, but it is so good. It's insane how many options there are, how many like different ways there are for people to play it who normally wouldn't be able to. None of that really applies to me, but the parts of it that I did like is the difficulty options. You can fine tune basically like every aspect of the difficulty.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. I want every game to have a difficulty option menu like this game, because it's tremendous.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was a small thing.
Not too bad when it comes to us disagreeing, but I'm sure things are about to get a whole lot more interesting as we go into story.
So full spoilers here, everyone. If you're listening to this 2 months after the release of The Last of Us Part 2, and you don't want to hear spoilers, then what are you doing?
Yeah,
Get out of here.
It's impossible to talk about this story without spoilers, because, the game starts with one, basically. Okay. Before we go into story and narrative, I just want to specifically talk about my favorite thing about the entire game. And I put it under story, but it's a little bit separate from the narrative, kind of, and that is world building. I really enjoyed the deeper look into the Last of Us world in The Last of Us 2, especially in Abby's half, because at the very beginning of Ellie's half, you're in Jackson, and I was trying to go in every door, and you just can't look around that place, and you just get pushed off, and then you never get to explore Jackson in the entire game, and it really annoyed me.
Yeah.
Really annoyed me.
It's weird that you can't, because if anything, I would say Jackson is the most interesting thing in that game from world building, because it's like a completely safe, functioning town with electricity and water, and everyone's living in houses.
Yeah.
And there's farming and agriculture, and you don't get to see any of it, which is a bummer.
Yeah. But at least in Abby's half, you get to see a look at the WLF and their facility, and I found that really interesting, especially because in Ellie's half, they don't really let on to how big they are. You obviously can tell from their numbers that they are a pretty substantial force, but when you wake up in the WLF, you realize that it's a fucking army, and they're in a stadium. I just really enjoyed that stuff. I enjoyed some of the, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, the chores and the day jobs of actually just running a facility. They're doing menial tasks, and they're talking about doing runs, and this has to get done, and this has to get done. It's not just about surviving, it's about living. And I really enjoyed that stuff, and I also, it happens in Ellie's half, but more so in Abby's half, you get a real look into the scars. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of how Horizon Zero Dawn did world building, where they had these different factions, and they all had adapted to the apocalypse differently. They had different ways of life, they had different religions, and I enjoyed the contrast between the WLF and the Scars. The Scars being like the first really kind of tribal, animalistic, religious group. I enjoyed just having a peek behind the curtains and how slow the game took it at time and how more I felt like I was in the world than I did in The Last of Us 1. That was what I really loved about this game the most.
I like the visual aspect of those things. I liked seeing the stadium. I liked seeing their cool sort of the way they had converted the whole interior of the stadium into like a town with the farm in the on the playing field. And I liked seeing this sort of visual style of houses and farming with the scars and that stuff. I think my problem with that with the world building of the factions is that they're not. I don't understand or have a good sense of who, like, what their deal is. They're just kind of like cliches of like the wolves are the angry military group and the scars are the kooky religious cult. And I definitely liked seeing the parts of it, and it was neat to see the way that they were living and the way that they would like get around the Seattle area. But I never got a sense of, and this applies to sort of everything about the game, I never got a good sense of like the sort of core human part of these factions, because they're just violent, murderous assholes, you know?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I'm fine with the sort of core idea of these factions being pretty cliche and familiar if they go into them and make them interesting, but they don't, and I actually found that very frustrating.
I think
but I do agree that. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think the weirdest thing about the world building in that regard is I actually think they did a pretty good job of showing you the people and their ways, but they introduced the leaders. They talk about the leaders of both groups, and they don't really do anything with them. Like, Isaac is a proper character in the game, and he's actually a pretty significant actor who plays him.
It's Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah, and he just doesn't really do anything.
He has 2 scenes.
And then for the scars, they paint up this like religious lady, a prophet or whatever. And she's not in the game. They big her up
they
for
don't
ages.
explain like anything. Yeah,
that was weird
very
to me.
Weird. It's very weird. And when I found out that Jeffrey Wright plays Isaac, I was almost more annoyed, because Jeffrey Wright is a tremendous talent.
Yeah.
Has wonderful presence in everything he's in, including all the way down to being the hamster guy in BoJack Horseman.
Okay.
But he has like 2, and he's good in this. I could tell it was him, not by his voice, but by his stance,
presence,
his like physical stance, and like the sort of like shark sort of, or bulldog, like sort of dead eye stare that he gave. I was like, this guy reminds me of Jeffrey Wright, and it turns out it was him. And so he's got a good presence, but yeah, he's in like 2 scenes, and he really hates those scars, and it's like, okay, but why? Like, who is this person, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, before we transition into the narrative, that was just one of the aspects of the game I like. It kind of goes back to when we were talking about the open areas of the game that also accentuated that feeling for me, where it just felt more like a world and not like a Naughty Dog roller coaster, cinematic ride this time. And I like The Last of Us world. And it was nice to finally be in it. And for all the criticisms that people will have of the story and everything else, I think, for me, at least that part worked, where I got to see people living in the world and how everyone is doing things and how people are doing things differently, etc., etc. I liked it. I liked that part.
Mm-hmm. As someone that really likes lore and world building, I wish there was more to chew on with that stuff. Mm-hmm. And that they weren't all just murderous, vile, reprehensible, god-awful fuckos.
Well, that's the game.
Which is the entire...
That is the game. So we should probably start from the beginning. So Joel gets his head bashed in with a golf club.
Good.
So I'm actually going to talk about this because this is my biggest problem with the story.
It's one of mine too.
Maybe. I think Joel dying is fine. He's an old dude and he has made some bad decisions, and people getting retribution makes sense.
Yeah.
But I just don't really feel like killing him off before the game really starts does much. Because he feels, like, when you start the game, he feels like a different Joel. You've missed 4 years. He's not the Joel you know. And you don't even get a chance to kind of connect with him. So when he dies, it's just kind of like, oh, I guess Joel's dead. And I feel like they could have achieved what they wanted. I feel like the main morality of the game is just about, this game's just about fucking hate. It's just about hatred and hating people.
Yep.
And we'll get into the morality. I assume it's like, let hate go or something, whatever. This game is literally just about hate. And I get it, but I feel like you could have achieved making, these messages without Joel getting his head bashed in the prologue. How about, hear me out here, how about Tommy dies at the beginning? Maybe Abby mistakes him for Joel. She doesn't know what Joel looks like. She kills Tommy brutally. And Joel is the one that goes on the murderous rampage, and Ellie is kind of by him. And there's this weird dynamic where in the first game, Joel was kind of, he was harsh, but at the end he was this lovable, protective dad. And his anger, he loses sight of his protective nature over Ellie. And maybe eventually Joel does die, and that still makes the story roll forward. You get that moment of feeling sad, but you still get the moment of Ellie and Joel having a different dynamic in their relationship. You get the stuff that the fans like, and you can still get the message of hate and revenge, and you can still have Joel in the game. Abby can still be the villain. I just feel like Joel didn't have to die at the beginning, because when Joel died, I wasn't really that sad, and I feel like I should have been.
The problem for me is that I think Joel dying makes perfect sense as a thing to drive revenge for Ellie, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense. As a player, it was never going to work for me, because I would never at any point feel sad about the fact that Joel died, because he fucking deserves it.
Yeah.
I've never held, like, I feel like Joel is regarded in the wrong ways by a lot of the people that like the original Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
I think people like him.
Yeah.
And I don't know that, and I think the game likes him, and I think The Last of Us Part 2 really likes him in ways that feel wrong to me. They feel like fandom writing. It feels like they had originally sort of regarded Joel, maybe this is the way it sort of felt at the time, as Joel being kind of villainous, but he's relatable, he's human.
Yeah, the world has broken him into a bastard.
Yeah, but then I feel like the fandom affected the perception of Joel by the game makers, and that by 2, he's like, I found it weird how much the game sort of feels like it reveres him and loves him. And I don't know. Anyways, I'm getting off track. The core idea of Joel dying, being the catalyst for revenge for Ellie, makes sense. Being the catalyst for me, I was never gonna be like super drawn into it. Like when Joel died, I was like, wow, I'm sort of surprised they did that, but also, this is great. Like he had it coming.
Yeah.
And so what I was sort of hoping was that, okay, Joel's died. This is pretty obvious. Still, that scene is really well done.
Oof, brutal.
It's very
uncomfortable.
It sits with you. It lingers in a very effective way, and it does it without being like overly explicit.
Yeah.
And it's mostly achieved through like the performance and animation of her face in that scene is incredible. Yeah. Anyways, so after he died, I was like, okay, I think I know where this story is going. I hope they go some unexpected places. I hope that it is not just Ellie hunting down these people and killing them, and then the game saying, these people are people, revenge is bad, you shouldn't hate each other, maybe try to forgive. And by the 10-hour part, I was like, oh, maybe it'll still go somewhere other than that. And it doesn't.
Not really, no.
Doesn't. I think, I want to put it very plainly, I think the story in this game is terrible. I just stuttered saying it. I think the story is, I'm going to read exactly what I wrote down here in my notes. Overly long, self-indulgent, trite, uninspired, inhuman garbage.
Ooh, dude.
It's terrible.
I didn't think it was terrible. If you are comparing it to The Last of Us 1, then it is a tragic step down from what they achieved in The Last of Us 1.
Yeah.
But I did my best, especially after Ellie's section. That was when I tried to emotionally detach myself from my expectations, because Ellie's half really just ends with her doing, what you said, going on a rampage and, looking for revenge. And it pretty much is all the game does, but I will say in Naughty Dog's defense, when it comes to the trope of revenge plots, I do think that having two characters who are in different stages of revenge overlapping was at least kind of interesting to me. You have Abby, who is post-revenge, and she's on this trivial, strangely motivated redemption arc, which doesn't really have any logic behind it. She just kind of needs something because she's fucking miserable and she hates herself. And Ellie is before that. She is looking for, she's obsessed with revenge to the point where she's so unlikable that it's kind of hard to play.
She's awful.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah. And it's disappointing. It's really disappointing that the best thing about Last of Us 1, which is the moral ambiguity, after the Last of Us 1, you're sitting there and it really is difficult to figure out if you agree with Joel's decision or not.
And it's also difficult to parse how much they are both mutually on the same page, right? Like, the ending of that game is so good that it is still a very good, strong talking point after 7 years. Mm-hmm. Like, I think maybe we can still even, I'm not sure how you've read it, but I always read that ending as Ellie knows.
Yeah.
To some degree, she knows very much so that he is lying to her.
Yeah, and you can tell from the flashbacks that,
And she knows something is off, but I always felt like she knew more than she let on. And this game makes it clear that I'm an idiot. For that's not true.
She had suspicions.
She has suspicions for sure.
She knows something's up.
Oh God! The core idea of a sequel to The Last of Us was never going to work in a lot of ways because
it can work. It always can work.
I shouldn't say never. I should definitely not say never. You're right, because these are very complicated characters, and at least they were in the first game. And I say that mainly because a follow-up to the ending was always going to be, maybe not always, but it was going to be very hard to make something that was respectful of the ambiguity of the original.
Yes.
And I shouldn't say it was impossible. I think they absolutely could have continued on with these characters in ways that were interesting, without ruining the original as well. But they don't.
Yeah.
In this. The crux of my problem with this story, aside from it being so predictable, I think primarily it's that the characters are all so awful.
Yeah, I actually was going to tack that on. I was going to say the best things about The Last of Us 1 were the moral ambiguity and the characters and their relationships. And obviously this game chucks that in the trash. And I can't figure out if that's a creative decision or not. If they really were trying to just be so subversive of people's expectations that they're like, let's get rid of Joel, let's get rid of character bonding, let's get rid of
you hate Ellie,
moral ambiguity, and let's just make a game about pure and utter hatred. And I can get behind the artistic intention of chucking everything people expect in the trash and focusing on something completely different tonally. And I'm gonna say that as a story of revenge and hatred, it worked for me. But this is not a standalone game. I'm mostly talking about shifting my perspective at the end of the Ellie half to really be like, okay, I'm going in as a blank slate from now on. Otherwise, I'm gonna get my heart broken. And when I started Abby's half, I really managed to get myself into like, all right, I'm going in blank. I'm just forgetting about The Last of Us 1. And we will get to Abby's half. But I totally understand, people's take on it, because they took everything, they chucked it in the trash, and they went for something different. And I don't think it was worth it, to be honest.
I don't think that it was worth it either. And I think they think it's very, very clever.
Yes.
And I think the people that made this game, and I don't, well, I hate dragging a game because, so many people work on things and they work so fucking hard on it. And I don't want to drag individuals, but I think the writers of the game think they are so fucking smart that they
are though, but they just didn't do it.
They have proven themselves to not be with this game.
So much so that it's everyone makes mistakes, dude. They can still be smart.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. You are right. And if their next game, maybe they right the ship. You're right. It is entirely possible.
Yeah.
But to me, this feels like a game that was made similarly to like a Kojima game, where you have people at the helm who have been told by everyone in the world that they are super fucking smart. They think they're the hottest shit, and they make a story, and they think it's the most amazing and ingenious thing that has ever been put on screen. And the reality is it's just not. And in fact, it is actually almost shockingly unoriginal and has nothing to say. And all of the characters who they try to make these characters, they try to make the good characters bad and the bad characters good, and fail, because the reality is every character in this game is so awful, except for...
I'm not sure if they're trying to make anyone good. It didn't feel like that to me.
Everything about Yara and Lev feels like the game is just desperately trying to make Abby seem like not a completely vile and awful human being.
Nah, I didn't really get that feeling, because they have that confrontation in the middle with the pregnant girl, and she's like, "You're just a big piece of shit." And I didn't really feel like Abby was a good person by the end. I just felt like
I didn't either.
She was just I think she realized she was a piece of shit, and she just wanted to do something. That's what I got from it. It didn't make me feel like she was nice.
So that's one of the things I think I talked about a few times in my review, is I feel like none of these characters are even remotely self-aware or care about how awful they are.
Right.
I'm just trying to think of my words here. Okay, one example that always stood is sort of a good summary for me is Ellie has PTSD flashbacks to the murder of Joel, right?
Mm-hmm.
She never, ever, ever once has a single second of remorse for all of the things she did in this game. She murders so many people so violently. She has 30 seconds of shock when she kills the pregnant woman, and that's it. When she has the kid on her lap and she's sitting on the tractor, she's like, "I got so many stories to tell you when you're older." And I'm like, "Oh, no, Ellie, don't ever tell anyone about these things. You are a monster." And Abby feels more or less the same way.
She's a bit worse, I'd say, because she's being that version
she's worse
for longer, I think.
Yeah, but the game feels like it's trying so hard to make Abby especially seem like a better person than Ellie. And
the world's broken them, dude. This world,
it just doesn't work.
Revenge and hatred has turned them all into nasty people.
The thing about this that bothers me so much is how inhuman the entire game is. how lacking in humanity every aspect, every character, every faction, every story beat is. so lacking heart. And by the time you get to the Scar Island and the fucking like World War III genocide is happening, and Lev has murdered his mother by accident because she hates him so much because he's transgender, I was just like, this is the most vile game I've ever played.
Yeah, I like that island part. I thought it was crazy.
I was like so close to being done in that sequence because it just keeps going. The game is so narrow-minded with its view of all of these people. Every person in this game is so awful. It's shocking. And it's not effective in the way that, like, you know, I think what I wanted to say when we started this whole chat was like, I am shocked and I feel hate. And it's like, that's not what they wanted. It's not the right types of shock and hate, right? I am shocked at how simplistic the game is. And I hated it, not because I was supposed to. I hated it because it was so simplistic and so unrelentingly the same from beginning to end. Mm-hmm. And when the Abby stuff started, I had a hard time doing what you did, which is sort of approach it from a blank slate, because I was immediately like laughing out loud at the absurdity of how like on the nose it is to suddenly switch to the other side and be like, you know what? The other people are people too.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, the dog tweet was real, Joe.
Yeah, it was real.
I put that in there in the review. I'm like, this is the perfect summary of this entire video game. Is we saw a tweet that said, you know, you kill a dog in The Last of Us and then flash back to playing fetch with it. And I was like, that's a hilarious joke. It would be really sad and pathetic if the game actually did that. There's no way it will. And it literally does. I mean, it's not like immediate. But like some of the first things you do is you play fetch with the dogs that you've been killing. And in fact, the last thing you do as Ellie is actually kill a dog. And then one of the like major things near the end of the Abby section you do is play fetch with that dog. And it's like, this is, they're really, the dog tweet was real. And
yeah, it was.
I can't believe they think it's clever.
Yeah, okay. Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. First of all, I want to say in defense of the misery, I'm going to sound like a sick boy, but I kind of liked the misery in the game. Because the first game, you don't really see a lot of this shit that Joel and Tommy always talk about. They're like, we had to do so much to survive. And in the first game, you see like bandits who try and, you know, trick you, and you have the cannibal scene with David. I think I'm missing one example of some really nasty shit. But there isn't too much brutality in The Last of Us 1. There's a lot of zombie encounters and trying to survive, but in the 10-hour game, there's like 3 really nasty things.
Yeah.
And I'm just, again, coming back to the world building, I'm just kind of okay with showing that some parts of the world are just completely fucking horrible. And I'm not defending the way they handled it. And, you know, there's balance for everything. You can't really see the dark unless you sometimes put a little bit of light in there.
And there is nothing bright in this game.
Except for the flashbacks in Ellie's part. Those are
completely detached from the happenings of the main game.
Yeah, right? That was the stuff that made me think, man, I wish Joel was in the game more. Because
the museum flashback sequence is the best thing in the game.
Oh, it's lovely.
It's lovely. The spaceship thing, everything about that whole sequence is amazing.
Yeah.
But and don't get me wrong, despite what I'm going to say, I love that sequence. But it served as a negative reminder of the fact that it basically served as a reminder of the first game. Yeah. I was like, oh yeah, the first game was really good, and this thing is not. And that flashback doesn't really add anything either. It shows a tiny little bit that there's some tension between Ellie and Joel, but it just sort of like,
it's just nice.
Even though it happens after the end of The Last of Us, it just sort of feels like it could have been pulled out of the late game of The Last of Us. But it doesn't really serve much of a purpose, right? In the actual story.
Yeah.
Aside from showing a bit of tension between Ellie and Joel, which, you know, I could have deduced that because of the ending of the original game. And more than anything, yeah, it just reminded me of how much I liked that first game and how many moments in that first game stand out, both miserable moments that are effectively done. They're effectively done like when Sam and his brother die, right? Like it's
oh yeah,
it's a cliche. You meet these people and you become friends with them and then they die, right? Like, but it's done well. And those characters are likable and they're complicated. And The Last of Us, the first game, is great about balancing it treats people as people, and people are complicated and they're not just miserable, hateful, evil, trash, reprehensible garbage. And part two's view to me is them saying, no, everyone on Earth is like this in this game. And they pretty much are. Like,
well, there's Jackson, at least.
Is there? Because the only people in all of Jackson is a bigot who hates lesbians. Bossy Marlene and or whatever her name is, Tommy's wife, and Tommy, and those are the only two people and Jesse.
Listen, Seattle is just having a rough time, all right? They get it together.
Yeah, I guess this is the end result of cutting that out. Yeah, I just can't believe that it's so simple, and that it thinks it's so clever, and that it has such a narrow view of people.
The thing is, I just think my major problem with the game is that they thought they couldn't balance, this edgy, try-hard revenge quest with good characters. I just don't think they needed to go all in so hard to portray that, how much people hate each other and that that's bad. I know that it's a really tropey story, but I think for the most part they handled the core parts of the revenge plot at least well, and it was well acted, and most of the writing was pretty good. It's just that they committed so hard to it in a way that I just didn't think was necessary. You can still have characters who are nice. I don't know why you go on the quest with Dina and Jesse. I don't think they are horrible bad characters, but
they're just a little bit.
But they're all kids.
Empty.
It's like the Hunger Games. They're kids. They don't have that many complex layers to them as characters because they're fucking 19 years old. And the whole game you're chasing Tommy, who has layers, and his brother's just died.
Tommy's interesting.
How interesting would it have been if Ellie and Tommy had traveled together? Is Ellie's kind of pseudo dad and Tommy's brother have just died, and they could have gone on a journey together. And you're chasing Tommy the entire game, and you really don't get much time with him at all, like one or two scenes. There was just, I feel like they had opportunities to at least have some of the shadow, some of the soul of The Last of Us 1, and still go for whatever new darker tone, hate-filled, blood-fueled adventure they wanted. I just don't think they needed to commit so 100% to it.
Yeah, like you mentioned Dina and Jesse, and like you said, all the writing and all the performances in the game are fine. I think the writing is serviceable, but it seems better than it probably is because the actors are committed to it, right? The actors throughout the game are doing a great job of delivering their performances, but like Dina and Jesse, I don't know who they are, as people. Like, a great character, you should be able to imagine scenarios with them, and you should be able to imagine how they would deal with that scenario, right? And none of the people in this game, I don't know how they would deal with things. Well, there's two groups of them. One group is the sort of Dina and Jesse style character, of which I don't really know anything about, and I don't know how they would deal with something as like an emotional human being. The other half of the group of characters in the game, which is about 85% of the characters in the game, I do know how they would deal with everything, and it's by slitting someone's throat. In like hateful, miserable anger. And it's like, okay, not like people are not that simple. Like it's just so simplistic.
Yeah.
and all of this is in service of nothing. All of it is in service of a story that says revenge is indeed bad, and that, you know what? Forgiveness is the answer. And it's like, yeah, I know.
Okay, so I have pretty much been agreeing with you on everything when it comes to the story, but at the beginning I said I really like this game.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a point where, there's changes. And I feel like I'm going to have maybe one of the hottest takes in any Last of Us 2 review, because I have heard no one say this. I've looked at reviews and no one has said this. I really liked Abby's half, and I liked it more than Ellie's.
I kind of agree.
Okay.
I think I think most of that stems from Lev.
Yes. And also, Ellie's, Abby's half, I keep saying it, I keep fucking combining Ellie.
Both their names are exactly the same.
I was calling her Allie at the beginning as well, because of Ellie.
Yeah.
But I think Abby's half really reminded me of The Last of Us 1.
Sure.
I think that's probably the point. Ellie is... Abby is someone who has just gone through something and she's looking for redemption, which is, what Joel was doing in The Last of Us 1. And she finds a small child companion. I don't...
Certainly familiar.
Yeah. But after the bleak, repetitive nature of Ellie's half, where I just wasn't... I was, I'm still enjoying it, because like I said, I enjoyed the combat. And there was some interesting cinematic encounters in Ellie's half that I thought were cool. But man, I was just desperate for a mix-up. And at least in Abby's half, whether you like her as a character or not, because I don't think they're trying to make her likable, because she's not likable at all.
No, she sucks.
But there's like really varied and interesting moments in her campaign, if you want to call it that. There's variant in the environments. And Lev is a likable character, and Abby, even if she's a piece of shit, she's at least trying to do something good. Even if it's superficial and she's looking for some, redemption so she can sleep at night, there's at least like a motive of positivity amongst all the darkness. And oh my god, did I attach to that, and I just didn't want to let it go. It was like this tiny, tiny beacon of brightness in this horrible dark swamp.
And then they both get strung up at the slave labor camp, and they're all emaciated and miserable, and he doesn't even get any fucking lines at the end of the game.
We'll get to Santa Barbara.
Anyways.
We'll get to Santa Barbara.
I
really like Abby's half.
The second half of the game, I would definitely not say I really liked Abby's half.
No one has except for me, so it's okay.
In comparison to the first half of the game, there was at least things in the second half that I would latch onto as liking. I think all of the characters around Abby, except for Yara and Lev, who I'll talk about in a minute, I think all those people are just completely boring.
Yeah.
Owen, Manny... All those people are just so fucking uninteresting. And don't get me wrong, there are parts of that second half that I was just laughing out loud at how much I was hating it. Like, the fucking corny, angry sex scene was hilarious. It's just like...
Yeah, I heard about that coming, so I was kind of prepared.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah. So it was just like, haha, look at us. We're serious art. And it's like, nope. and the... So yeah, it's weird. So... But yes, Yara and Lev, despite I think Yara and Lev being... I'll just focus on Lev. I think Lev still doesn't feel quite fully, fleshed out enough.
Yeah. Just switching back and forth between characters too often in this game.
Yeah, he and Lev Lev and Yara are both... They both sort of just still feel like plot devices in a way, to just be like, here is the thing we're doing to make Abby... feel better about herself, and so like they feel a bit obvious. But Lev is still likable and interesting, and Yara is still likable and interesting, and Lev has an interesting different view, offers a different view compared to the other characters. I wish that the ending of his story wasn't his mother tried to kill him because he's transgender and so he had to protect himself and killed his mother, and man, isn't everyone in this world just so awful? I wish that they had used that as anything positive, but they don't, which is a real bummer. But I do agree, parts of Abby's section were like the most enjoyable parts of it. The entire section where you're basically going through the city with Lev and you're going up the building.
That's so good.
Is great. And, yes, the characterizations are still pretty simple. Like, Abby's whole character in that sequence is she's afraid of heights, right? But, like, it's a human trait. It's a single ounce of humanity to these characters. And Lev's conundrum of being transgender and hated by the world is, like, it's tragic, but it's, like, a human thing.
Yeah.
And it's done fairly well. I can't speak, to the quality of it. Other people, I think, would probably have some interesting things to say about their handling of a transgender character in a post-apocalyptic world. From my dumb brain, dumb idiot perspective, I thought it was all pretty well done. And it was nice to have any single little bit of humanity.
Oh God, for me it was just a breath of fresh air. And I found the events to be way more dramatic and interesting. Like the hospital scene was just the best part of the entire game when it comes to
it. It really is.
It's incredible. And the day 3, I know it was a lot, but
it's certainly different.
You can't say that it wasn't like a cinematic marvel at times. Some of that stuff. Oh my God.
Oh yeah,
the horse ride.
Yeah,
Jesus
it looked amazing.
Christ.
But I definitely didn't like that portion of it. But yes, Abby's section offers at the very least the most visual variety, and it offers the most humanity in the game, which is one droplet.
Yeah,
and it's not blood. It's just not a droplet of blood either. It's a droplet of like a tiny little. Anyways, yes. So I would say I get where you're coming from with liking Abby's half a lot, and I agree. I just would say I didn't like it as much as you did, but I definitely found portions of her stuff to be the only parts of the game that were tolerable, let's say.
Yeah, I'm sad you didn't like the sniper fight against Tommy. I really liked that portion. I thought it was great, just because to put like Tommy's his combat ability in context. Like, that guy was fucking scary, man. Tommy was scary.
Yeah, it just reminded me of like the umpteenth, it's a sniper with unlimited ammo and he sure is hitting every fucking shot and reloading instantly, and oh my God, I'm just dying over and over again and I'm about to break my controller in half, and oh God, I hate this game.
That was Tommy, mate. That's what he did to you. I love the review of being like, this guy fucking sucks. And I wanted to kill him so bad. And I noticed I was trying to shoot him in the distance, and the game was kind of like always making it so I missed. It does not let
you do that.
And I was like, what is going on?
I knew immediately that it was Tommy as well.
I didn't until like you get inside the interior. I was like, oh my God, this is Tommy. It was really exciting. I really liked that part.
I think it's real dumb that Tommy just doesn't die at the end. He's just like, he gets shot in the head, and I'm like, oh. Well, there goes Tommy.
Yeah.
I mean, he deserved it too. And then it's like, nah, I just have a limp and a scarred face, and my wife has left me. So it's like, oh, he suffered the consequences of revenge.
One thing that annoyed me about this game is it kills every character with a bullet to the face like that. It thinks it's like The Departed, and it's
oh my God,
it's cool.
Fuck The Departed.
It's cool to do that once and get the shock value, but everyone died that way.
Yeah.
Everyone, like, in the game died in, like, one bullet to
everyone
the face
dies.
instantly. Yeah, whatever.
In a way that is, like, not interesting either. And, I mean, I said, I wish Tommy had died, but also, like, him not dying is not interesting either. And Yara just dying and then getting shot, like, 45 times. I was just like, oh, all right, there goes one of the two characters I liked, and she's gone. And it's like, okay, goodbye. And Lev is just sort of there for the ending section of the game.
Yeah, well, he's just been tortured, man. What do you want him to deliver? Shakespeare?
No, I mean, like, before, like, when you're just in Santa Barbara with...
You have a little chit-chat.
Yeah. but there's not really a whole lot there. And,
another reason that Abby's section was effective for me was I watched a bunch of reviews, and everyone was like, man, I just wanted to get through Abby's stuff and get back to Ellie. And near the end of Abby's stuff, I did not give a shit about Ellie. And
I didn't give a shit about her throughout pretty much the entire game.
And what Abby's section did really well is it didn't make... I thought the intention was going to be to sympathize with the WLF. And you're like, oh, they're people after all. But I didn't really give a shit about them dying anyway. They killed Joel, go fuck yourself. It was more trivialized... Sorry, trivialized? I can't pronounce that one. It just made Ellie's whole quest seem so silly at the end. And when you get back to the theater and she puts up her arms and she's like, I know why you did it. It's like, shut up. Like, I don't
shoot Ellie.
Like, I don't give a shit. And
the world would be way better off if Ellie was
It just made her seem so silly and her quest seem pathetic in the end.
Yeah.
And I really liked the effect it had in that regard.
Yeah. Anyone that likes Ellie in this game is a fool.
Yeah, people are like, I just want to get back to Ellie. It's like, fuck that girl.
Because she is reprehensible. She is the most awful character in the game.
Yeah. She's a psycho, mate.
Another story thing I wanted to mention, I don't know, so let me know if you felt this way or not. You're maybe not as sensitive to it as I am. And I didn't bring it up in my review again. There's just no way to fit it in without being 40,000 words. I felt like a lot of the game was like convenient.
Okay.
A lot of convenience happens with these characters. And I don't know, maybe it's just something the storytelling part of my brain is more sensitive to, because like whenever I have to work on a story, I'm just like, fuck, I hate convenience so much. Just like, how do we get Dina out of the picture? And it's like, oh, she's pregnant. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's handy.
When she puked out of nowhere, I was like, oh, God, all right. Yeah. Subtle.
And then like Jesse shows up out of nowhere and you're like, oh, that's convenient, Yeah. There was I felt like a lot of that was just like, oh, wow, that was convenient instead of inconvenience. Because inconvenience is what lets a character show themselves. Mm-hmm. Inconvenience causes character development and character exploration. And a lot of it's just like, even the ending portion, it's like, wow, she sure found them. Ellie sure found them quickly, like easily, It's like, mm-hmm. California is like huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
Just a lot of that. Whereas I was thinking about, there's good inconvenience in The Last of Us. Like the best one being when Joel falls and gets the rebar through his gut.
Mm-hmm.
Is like, oh, perfect inconvenience to allow Ellie
mm-hmm.
to show herself and grow. And there was never anything like that, whereas like a lot of these situations that they're put into, I found myself not worrying about because they just get out of it,
Yeah.
And I just wish there was a bit more of that. It was fairly low on my list of problems, but it was something that I did sort of feel myself noticing more and more throughout the game. It's just like, oh, that was any. There is certainly inconvenience at times, but it never feels like it allows for a much character growth, which is because there is no character growth.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, no, there's no character growth. I'm
just looking through my notes here. Yeah, go ahead.
What did you think of the Ellie boss fight? Because I really liked it. I thought it was hilarious.
I certainly thought it was hilarious too. I was definitely laughing.
Yes, I was laughing
at how
too.
God awful and miserable, and how much I just wanted both of them to shoot each other in the head and let the story end. And in fact, there was a part where Ellie caught me and shotgunned me in the gut and then shot my head off with a shotgun. Yeah. I was like, boom, game over, done, roll the credits. This should be a valid ending. They should literally roll. If this was a Kojima game, Joe, he would have rolled the credits there. And he would have made you sit through 25 minutes of credits, and then you would have gotten back and done it again. And you know what? If the game had done that, I would have been okay with it.
I really liked that fight, mostly because at that point in the game, I was on my biggest high. Because I like the Abby stuff. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was varied, exciting, cinematic. And I kind of emotionally detached myself from the shitty characters and me not anticipating there being any moral ingenuity when it comes to the story.
Yep.
So I really enjoyed the Ellie boss fight because it's kind of silly. Her AI is nuts. She's really scary. And I don't know...
Oh, really? Oh.
I don't know if you got to the point.
I thought you meant silly because it's so easy.
No, she killed the shit out of me.
Oh, no. I got caught once, but interesting.
She blew me up with a trip mine in the second half. I exploded.
Oh, weird. I just picked up a brick and threw it at her and immediately got back into the cutscene part of the fight.
I tried that. You blocked it.
Really? Yeah. Oh, no. I breezed through that thing in like 30 seconds.
Oh, she killed me like 6 times. She was owning me.
That's fascinating. Huh.
When she killed me with a trip bomb, I cackled. I was like, what the fuck? I didn't even see it.
I enjoyed... If there's one part of that fight that I enjoyed, it's that by then, even though I already felt this way, Abby is intense.
Oh yeah,
and
she's scary.
But she was that way. I felt that way immediately. I mean, it's not just her physical appearance, of course, but like she has a good presence from immediately.
Oh, she's like
when you start the game.
Fighter. She just never stops.
Yeah. And so by the time you get to the Abby arriving at the theater portion, I was like, okay, like you fucked with the wrong chick, you know, like. Abby is a force to be reckoned with in a way that Ellie isn't. Like Ellie, Ellie is a murderous psychopath. But like Abby has a strength and an angerness to her that is different from Ellie's and is sort of more convincing and scary.
I mean, it does help that she's built like an ox, as the game says.
Well, yes,
she punches Ellie once in the face and like breaks her face open.
I have a question. So, this was the thing. This is what I thought for about 20 minutes when the game was starting in the winter section. When Abby, because they don't say her name for a while in the beginning of the game, when Abby wakes up and you're first shown her, I thought it was a 15 years later Ellie.
Oh, no, I didn't think that.
Because like their faces are somewhat similar. Their voices sound sort of similar. And I was like, I could see Ellie looking like this at like 40 and, working out a lot. And anyways, it was
I thought, who the hell is this?
Well, yeah. At first I was like, who is this? Is this like, did they just flash forward like 10 years? Which I thought would have been kind of interesting. But nope, they didn't. Anyways.
Okay.
You spoke of... Well, okay. Well, I was going to say I wanted to talk about the violence.
Okay. Okay. I've just got some like nitpicks of the story left.
Okay.
But you can go.
Well, you said it reminded me when you said she punched her in the face and like broke her face, and I meant to talk about this in the gameplay section. I think the in-game gameplay violence, it feels exactly the same to me as how I remember feeling about it in the first game. It's grotesque and violent, but like, whatever.
I don't think it's too bad. Some of the like melee executions are really brutal, but apart from that, it's
and they put a little too much detail into like the of the artery spraying every time, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
And every once in a while I'm like, okay, please shut up. You shoot someone's leg off and they're like for like 45
and then her
seconds.
Friend's like, Sarah, oh no, Sarah. It's like, you know each other's names, I get it.
Again, another thing, I couldn't fit it into the review, but it was interesting that they like talked all that stuff up a lot, and then it's just like, it's not effective in the gameplay.
Nah.
It's just sort of like,
They just say the names.
I very rarely thought about it, but the violence in the cutscenes is so disgusting and awful. And like everything else in the game, it serves no purpose,
Yeah.
Everyone just it feels masturbatory by the end, especially the end of the island sequence where you've slit this guy's jaw open and his jaw is hanging there, and you're like pulling his tongue out, and you're like, and it's just so excessive to the point of nothing. And that was one of it's like this game was just so exhausting.
I think
because of how much I disliked it.
But that's you're
because
supposed
of
to
how
hate
little
the
it had
killing by the end, Jameson.
Oh,
that's
God.
why the island there's the
I will
climax.
slap anyone that actually believes that and says it to my face.
At the end of the island, everyone's just killing each other. Everyone hates each other, and you're just trying to get away from it. I know.
Oh God.
It's so clever.
It's so clever. Did you want to talk about the Santa Barbara part? Is that part of nitpicking? Or?
Yeah. But before then,
Okay.
There was just one little small nitpick of the day 3 where all the WLF just they just turn on Abby, even though only one group of them see Abby do anything bad. They just all hate you.
Right.
And I was like, do they have walkie-talkies, like radios? Because I've never seen a walkie-talkie in this universe, and maybe they did, but they were all just like, Abby, and then started shooting at me. And I was like, wait, how do you know that I'm at AWOL and I shot at Isaac or whatever? How do you know that? Yeah. And I do have another critique. It does kind of bleed into Santa Barbara and the ending. But it really annoyed me how Abby and Ellie just don't talk to each other at all. Like, Abby never says... She doesn't even explain why she kills Joel. And, okay, this is the weirdest part. Abby must know that Ellie is the girl from the hospital, right? Doesn't Abby know that Ellie is immune to the virus? Doesn't she think that's important? She's trying to find the Fireflies. And in Santa Barbara, I assume she's going after the Fireflies. She never mentions it or talks to... She never has a conversation with Ellie, ever. She just says, you killed my friends. I let you live. And that's it.
Which I laughed at when she said that.
Like, Ellie's a big deal. Not many people know she's immune to the virus. Doesn't that mean something? Don't you want to, like, bring that up?
No, don't worry about it.
She doesn't explain why she killed Joel. Like, at the end, she's exhausted and she doesn't want to fight her. Why don't you just say, Joel killed my dad? Ellie never knows that Joel killed her dad. It's so weird. They just don't talk. Why don't you just have a conversation?
No, I know. I when she arrives at the theater and just starts killing them, I was like, I would make sure that these are the actual people and that this map wasn't just, I don't know. I felt it weird that she just immediately starts killing everyone. It's like, doesn't ask, or like confirm that like these are the people and why no one you're right. No one seems to care about motivation.
Yeah.
Maybe there was a reason. They even talk about it, right? Like Dina and Jesse and Ellie all like more than once talk about like, are you going to ask them why she did it? And she's like, yeah. And they never do.
Yeah. And Ellie tries. She's like, I know why you did it. It's because blah, blah, blah. And then Abby doesn't say anything. She's just like, you killed my friends. It's like, what?
Yeah, you would think that Abby in that moment would be like, oh, fuck, this is the girl that's immune.
Yeah. And also, you're wrong. That's not why I killed Joel. Like, don't you want to know why, like, my motivation? I don't know. It just seemed weird that she just didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my nitpicks.
Yeah.
And
you know what I was thinking last night? I was thinking about how I would make this with its sort of core structure.
Okay.
What would be and this is just like a very rough idea, but what would be like a more interesting way to sort of take these characters and these themes and present it in a way that I would find interesting? And what I thought was make The Last of Us Part 2, have it entirely be Abby. You never ever see or hear or play anything about Ellie and Joel.
Okay.
Have the whole game be Abby. Have her clearly, something has happened in her past and she's miserable and she's looking for revenge. Have it at the halfway point. Have her find out, I think I know who did it. Oh, and or at the halfway point, have us find out that, she's mad because Joel killed her father, the doctor, at the end of the first game. Oh, interesting. Oh, that's why she's mad. And then maybe at the end of the game, it's like, we found out where we have a lead. It's Jackson. And then, maybe they choose not to go fucking through with all this bullshit. That would be an interesting game to me.
Yeah,
instead of, and it would preserve the first game. And I mean, obviously, I was just thinking that was like 2 seconds of thoughts, but like, that would be an interesting approach. Have a completely new story and characters that are related to the first. And they can still want revenge, but maybe because they're like even remotely civilized human beings, they realize that this cycle is bad. I don't know. Anything would have been more interesting than what they got.
The cycle is bad. This is all happening because Abby killed Joel. So revenge is bad. See? Don't you get it? Revenge is so bad.
No, I don't. I must be a big fucking moron.
It's all happening because it's all Abby's fault. This is Abby's game, kind of.
Or I would have almost been more interested if they did the Abby stuff first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then the Ellie stuff. Because by the time it switches to Abby, it's like, you're supposed to care about all these people, and it's like, no, they're dead. I don't care.
Yeah,
And I never knew who they were when you were Ellie. Like, they kept saying, like, oh, we're going to hunt down Noah. And I'm like, or Owen, is it right? Owen's name. And I'm like,
yeah.
Who's Owen? Like, and they only show the picture of him for like 30 seconds. And I'm like, for like the first 15 hours of this game, I'm like, what's the story here? What's happening? Like, I get it that we're going after Abby, but like, who is the target right now? What? Maybe it would have been more interesting to have all the Abby stuff happen first and then you play as Ellie. I don't know.
Yeah.
The entire structure is inherently flawed, I think.
Yeah, they had an idea, and I'm the positive optimist here, where I want to support their idea for the story, but they chopped away too much of the meat, and they tied it up in a really weird broken bow, and it just doesn't really work.
No.
You know, I managed to find a lot of stuff I liked. I'd say the combat of the game is 70%, so that really helps. And I liked half of the story, so, you know, that also really helps. But I agree with pretty much all the criticisms people have of the game. Do you want to talk about Santa Barbara? It's only a small part, but I felt that to be very unnecessary. It would have been okay if they didn't have like waves of soldiers with armored helmets on, because you've just finished like the biggest climax of the story, and you're on a high of like, wow, I want to see what happens next. And they must have known that every player just wants to see the conclusion, because you know you're on the final stretch. And you kind of lose all attachments to the game's systems at that point, because you don't give a shit about how much ammo you have or your health or health kits.
You know the game is going to be over in like 30 minutes.
And when you have that knowledge, kind of everything kind of falls apart. So why have, you know, like waves and waves of these soldiers? There were so many of those soldiers. I kept running into a building thinking there was one guy left. I'd hit him with my melee weapon and then be shocked there was 4 more people there. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Where are these guys?
That whole ending sequence was just like the perfect ending cap for me of just like everything I had disliked was there. And it just kept going. And it's like... Oh, look, another faction. Oh, what's their deal? Is there anything interesting to learn about? No. They're just evil, miserable, awful, and they use slave labor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Are they fun to fight? No, you can't headshot them. Oh, okay. Great. I can't wait to see what happens with the story. Oh, wow, they're going to fight. Oh, okay. Oh, she didn't kill him. Wow, I never would have predicted that.
Okay.
And then it's
final brawl was the most uncomfortable I've ever been playing anything in my life. It was excruciating. And, you know, I'm going to put that as a positive. The animation and like the framing of that part and the sadness of that scene. Oh my god. I couldn't believe that fight. It was so awful. Like you
my eyes
felt
were
that about,
so glazed over.
God, you felt that about, you know, the burning down of the Scar Village. I was still kind of chipper. I was still kind of on board. Like, whatever, this is fun. But that scene was traumatizing. Like the event wasn't even that bad. You know, Joel getting his head bashed in was, you know, more impactful. It was just like the sadness, and it was so pathetic. And the fact that Ellie was still going was just like excruciating. And I found it to be pretty effective. I can understand people not liking it, but I was just like, oh my god, this is so miserable. Just stop.
Yeah, just stop.
Yeah.
I wish I could have done that when they started, when the pen first touched down on paper in 2015. I wish I could have been the little cat paw being like, it's time to stop posting. Just don't bother.
Oh boy. Yeah, you talk about it. The very ending.
I think the very ending of the game?
Yeah,
I don't fucking know. When it ended, I was just like, okay. This is sort of like a more broad summary of the entire thing. Every time I sat down to play this video game, I went into it thinking, this is the session where I'm going to like the game. This is the session where the systems are going to click. This is the session where the story's going to it's going to do something interesting. Hopefully. This is the session. And every time I stopped playing it, I was mad and shaking my head at how much I was disliking it and how poor I thought it was.
Aww.
And that includes my first session, right when I sat down on launch night. I played 3 hours, totally open mind. And, the story was early day, so I wasn't really judging the story, but the gameplay, I was like, immediately after those 3 hours, as I was trying to fall asleep, I was like, I think I even might have said it in one of our Discords. I was like, I am surprised by how bored I am already of this game.
Yeah.
And that just carried through all the way to the end. And all the way to the end, I kept thinking they're going to do something with this story.
Yeah,
I kept thinking. And the very ending is you learn that Ellie wanted to forgive Joel. And I'm like, okay, great. And then she goes back to her homestead and, Dina's left. And I'm like, yeah, good. Dina...
Did you like the...
Dina should run for the fucking hills.
Did you like the metaphor of her not being able to play guitar? Do you get,
yeah,
get it?
And there's like a moth on the guitar that they show for like 30 seconds. It's like like moths and fireflies that both, are attracted to light. And it's like... And then it ended and it just goes to credits. And I'm like, there's got to be something after the credits, right? And then it just goes to the title screen and it shows Abby's boat. She made it to the Firefly facility. And I'm like... Can I uninstall this game now? Oh no, I have to do a review. Otherwise I'm going to go insane.
Yeah, I think I'm coming to the end of my thoughts as well. I really liked the game. I know it doesn't sound like I liked it because my biggest problems with the game is the story. It is the most impactful part of the game because it's The Last of Us. It's a story game.
Yeah, it's why you come to the game.
Yeah, and it is, the thing we talked about the most. So I think I've said more negatives than positives, but that often happens just because it's more interesting to talk about things you think could have been improved rather than be like, I liked the gunplay. I liked being in the grass and shooting things.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the combat. I thought the game looked amazing. I thought the sound was great. And I really enjoyed half of the game's story, which was Abby's half. And when I was in Ellie's half, I just was like, ugh. All right. And for me, the game is just disappointing. Because I managed to get myself into a headspace where I overall came away really enjoying the game, doesn't mean that I'm happy about it. I'm a Last of Us 1 super fan. And they chopped away everything about that game and put it in the trash. And I am all for artistic bravery. I'm all for sadness. I'm all for hatred, murder, violence in entertainment. In entertainment.
Cops, please don't come get us.
That stuff I was fine with. They just didn't need to make as many sacrifices to the original soul of the first game to accomplish their vision. And obviously a lot of other plot holes I've mentioned along the way and things that didn't work for me. But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the game just because it was interesting. I didn't know what was coming. I like the constant anxiety and dread because shit's going to go bad in this game somewhere. But it takes a really long time for shit to go bad. Like the whole of the early half was going according to plan. And I was like, when are things going to get rough? And they do. Yeah. And it takes its time, and I enjoyed that dread and anxiety that was building up. But yeah, I see everyone's complaints. I understand them, and I mostly agree with them. I don't know how I managed to get myself into a mental headspace where I kind of overcame that and had some good fun. But I would probably join in and say that overall I'm pretty disappointed by the story in The Last of Us 2. They didn't have to go as far as they did.
Yeah, I would say disappointment is a big word that comes to mind for sure because, the first game is special, and I still hold it in high regard, despite me sort of also thinking that the sequel undermines it in some ways and sort of undoes some of it. But it is still, I can still mentally regard it as its own thing, the same way I don't consider the other Terminators after 2 or the other Aliens after Aliens sequels, right? Right. Those characters, they had their ending, and that's the canon in my mind. But yeah, I would say not just story, but pretty much every part of it, except for the presentation, is a huge disappointment to me. And I went in expecting a lot because Naughty Dog has historically delivered a lot. And there is certainly a lot of stuff in this game. It certainly exists for a long time. But none of the content for me was ever very compelling. And I would say it is the most I have been disappointed by a game since
Andromeda,
yeah. Even though it feels, Andromeda is incomparably worse.
Oh yeah.
But relative to my expectations, The Last of Us in almost every regard is just like a huge fucking letdown. And not only is it a letdown, I actively disliked so much of my time with it, to the point that you might want to plug your ears here because I'm going to say the worst thing I've ever said. Not actually, but to the point that I thought, if this game wasn't called this is not the bad part either. If this game wasn't called The Last of Us, I definitely would not have played more than like 6 or 8 hours of it. I would not have finished it. It reminds me of how much I hated Days Gone.
Ooh, okay.
This game reminds me of a bigger budget Days Gone.
Oh, come on, Jesus.
In terms of how much I hated everything about the story especially, but also how uninteresting and uninspired I found most of the gameplay to be.
Damn.
But on its own, not comparing to other things, I just think they just didn't do it. They just missed the mark completely for me.
That's fair.
And I wish that I had not played it.
Wow. Damn.
In fact, I don't think it needed to be made. I kind of wish it didn't exist, and I wish I didn't play it.
Sad.
And that's not because my precious Last of Us 1 has been ruined. It's because I had such a fucking miserable time playing through it, and not in the way that they intend.
I think we've all got to the point where every IP we've ever known has been destroyed, so we're all kind of in that position where we can just kind of snip off where we don't like in the franchises.
Exactly. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've gotten very good at that this generation.
Oh, yeah.
Just take those scissors and go snip, snip, snip. Goodbye.
Happens to them all.
You in the garbage. Yeah, I expected better from Naughty Dog, and I really it has made me be like, I'm fascinated to see what their next game is, because now they're a question mark to me. Mm-hmm. Whereas up until this point, for 11 years now since Uncharted 2, they've been a surefire thing, and this game for me was just, it's turned them into a question mark.
Interesting.
And if they make a third Last of Us, I don't want to play it.
I'll do the review then, because I'll be there, baby.
What's that?
I said I'll do the review because I will be there.
Yeah.
I'm down. I'm this is going to sound, I want to play more now. I kind of miss it.
I can't tell you how fucking much I wish I was recording all of my gameplay for the review, because instead I have to go back and replay things, and it's killing me.
Maybe I can do it for you.
No, it's fine. I need to get specific things. So
okay.
I've already got 2 hours. I was just about to say something and it's escaped me. Fuck.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know what it was.
I think another part of The Last of Us 2 I enjoyed is just kind of the unknown of the game. I had no idea where the hell this game was going, and that intrigue was pretty good. Kept me going. And also, from a critical point of view, I think me and you are probably both the same, where when we play games, we start to mentally prepare our talking points of a review. It just kind of happens when you've been doing this for a long time. And it was like I was mentally rewriting my review every single play session because it kept changing. I was really negative at the end of the Ellie section. Well, kind of negative. I just wasn't feeling it. And then I had this weird turnaround with Abby. And it was just an interesting game journey for me. Full of weird twists and turns where I thought I was going to maybe end up closer to you, and somehow it turned around. I do wonder how differently I would have felt about the game if I hadn't warmed up with The Last of Us 1 and then jumped into an experience where almost everything is objectively better if you look at it from technical, the combat.
And just game feel, right?
Yeah.
You know, just like small things they do. Yeah.
I wonder how much that would have changed things. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I remember what I was going to say, and it's sort of, it's a meta thing, and it is review related, and it feels sort of dumb to say, because again, it's just people's opinions and they don't matter, but I find it frustrating how well received this game has been.
That's okay.
Because A, it's baffling. It's baffling to me. But B, it also to me just means that they're like Naughty Dog's just going to keep making the exact same game. You know, we're like, disconnect all the story stuff from it. I feel like this is just another 94 Metacritic game of the year for so many people. And it's like, Naughty Dog can just be like, yeah, we can just keep making structurally the exact same game. And that's a bummer. From the story side of it, you know, I don't want to question other people's opinions, because they're their own opinions and they can feel however they want about it. But it's one of those things where my brain just so fundamentally does not understand what people like about this story. Aside from being impressed by the visuals and the presentation and the fidelity of the character animations and the cutscenes, which are all amazing.
I mean, like, this topic is more of a podcast type topic.
Yes.
But holy shit, the review scores for this game are bullshit. If you gave this game a 10 out of 10, you're a joke. You're actually a joke. There is no world where this is a 10 out of 10. I'm on the optimism supporting side. I really like the game, but I just don't understand how you can, like, so unanimously as well across the board of the critics.
It's so confusing to me.
And it's so boring as well. Like, they're all like, oh, it's high art, so it's great. It's like, fuck off.
It's like, it's not. Like,
do you know what's been great? Like, all the reviews post the Metacritic bullshit have been so good because it's been so divisive and there's been so many conversations on both sides. And that's what I really like about some video games. Like, Death Stranding to me was interesting because it was also divisive. Those games are interesting. They bring up conversations. There's no conversation towards saying it's a 10 out of 10. There's nothing to say.
Unfortunately, some of those conversations are people yelling horrible things at the game for no reason. And fuck all you people.
I'm not talking about, you know, the, what do you call it when you slam a review score down?
Yeah, review bombing.
Yeah, I'm not talking about those idiots. I'm talking about more like the actual discourse that's been going on YouTube reviews.
Yeah.
Some people
I listened to the Waypoint folks talk about it
what they think.
And I was like, thank you. You know, where it's like, the story, not liking the story and not liking the gameplay stuff as well. That's what I was struggling to find most, is like, where are people that disliked the format, you know? I'll have to watch some, I'm curious. But yeah, it's very frustrating when something just that is so obviously flawed and is reviewed so universally the same. And that's a big conversation for another day, and one that we've had many times, is just the similarity, the echo chamber that is game reviews. And it results in it doesn't allow for good conversation, and that's what's frustrating.
I don't know if you realize, but we actually used to give scores on this show. We used to give stars.
Yeah, we did.
And we didn't even talk about it. We just stopped.
Yeah, we've sort of just abandoned doing that because it's hopeless. But I am unsure what to score my review of the game.
Oh, fuck it.
I have waffled back and forth between 2 and 3 out of 5. And I think 3 is... I almost feel like 3 is generous.
It's your
because
opinion,
of
mate.
my personal experience with it.
You might as well literally go in. Every review, because the game is so divisive, has like 500 dislikes on each side. Like, even if it's positive, like Donkey's review was positive and it was disliked to shit. I saw someone else who was negative and their review was disliked to shit. So
I saw SkillUp's review has like 3 million views or something.
Yeah,
like,
it was a good review. It's a good review.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw little snips of it, and the line that I really like that he used, which is, the first game, there was a slogan in the first game, which is like, when you're in the dark, look for the light or whatever, and there's no light in part 2, and it's a very eloquent way of saying exactly what I feel. I wish I had come up with that line, because it's there is no positivity in this game. And I don't know.
I want to play a game which is just about Joel teaching Ellie the guitar. That's what I want to play.
But it was certainly fascinating. I will say there is a part of me that is glad to have played it because it has at least engaged my brain way more than I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
It's just not for the right reasons, unfortunately.
It's at least a fun part of video game discourse.
Yeah, and I would have bet up until basically when I started playing the game, I would have put money on liking this game. Well, maybe not. I don't know. In theory, a new Naughty Dog game, especially a new Last of Us game, is something that I theoretically could have really liked and expected to be like high on a top 10 list or something at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I cannot believe the extent to which I do not feel that way.
I will say I was not expecting it. I thought you were going to be closer to me, where you had problems with it, but overall just kind of enjoyed the majority of it.
Yeah.
Good times, eh?
Hey, it's almost worth it.
Yeah.
It was almost worth it.
And I also said to Ben, I hope Jameson hates it for the chat.
Well, here we go. Almost 3 hours long.
And it happened.
I was gonna say, I mean, this is me like literally just starting right in, not on Ghost of Tsushima, but on the discussion. I was gonna say before we move on to Ghost of Tsushima from our Last of Us 2 talk, which we just finished having just moments ago.
We're not going back, are we?
No. I was just going to say the last closing thought on The Last of Us is that it's been 6 weeks since we had that chat, which is wild. I spent like 3 weeks with that game on the brain, right? I spent, like, what was it, 5 or 6 days playing it, a week reviewing it, and then another week consuming the bullshit around reviews of that game.
Yeah.
And I think the most damning thing I can say now that time has passed is, man, I don't remember anything from that game.
I came away, I think since we recorded the chat, I've come away feeling more fondly towards the gameplay and feeling less fondly towards the story. Like the more different perspectives and like holes that people were finding within, the plot.
Yeah.
The more I listened to what people had to say, the more I was like, oh yeah, this is even... I mean, we went in as well.
Yeah, but there's so much like that we didn't even touch on with problems with the story. Yeah.
But now I've had a little rest. I think back to the gameplay, really fondly.
Interesting. Yeah.
I just really liked playing that game. But man, that game is it's a pretty shitty sequel, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's a really shitty sequel. I don't think I've ever seen a piece of media so like offensively disregard everything a community liked about its product before in an attempt to reach some sort of egotistical artistic place.
The Titanic 2 movie was probably a bad sequel.
Come on. It's not James Cameron, is it?
No.
Fucking Asylum Films, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think like the first game is over 7 years old now. And I can like very vividly recall a lot from that game. Granted, I've played it through like I think 3 times, but I remember broad story moments and like really small. Like I remember the zombie fight in the museum early in that game where it's all night and there's like it's like a American historical museum, and I remember the cool little side story with the guy and the little community in the sewers.
Yeah.
And then I remember like a lot of I remember all these big moments and even just like visuals, and The Last of Us Part 2, I mean, it's only 6 weeks old, and I spent 3 weeks thinking about it, and it's just gone. It's just I don't remember much of anything from that game. Like I saw something and I was like, was that in the game? And then I had to go look up the cutscene. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I remember this.
Last of Us 1's pretty straightforward as well.
Yeah.
There's like less than 10 plot points in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
that was the last thing I wanted to say. Is it's just wow, it's sure was forgettable. And speaking of forgettable,
whoa! Oh my god, he just came out swinging. So we're talking about Ghosts of Tsushima.
Yes, Ghost of Tsushima.
Tsushima. Sucker Punch game. Looked kind of cool, and then it came out and wasn't that cool really. So
yeah.
I'm kind of just like awkwardly pausing because I kind of want you to just kind of go first.
Okay, I think Ghost of Tsushima is fine.
Yes, yeah, me too. I think it's got a lot of pretty strong components and some really good production values.
I don't know. Yes, and also no. I don't know.
Okay.
I think going in, well, it was announced. Okay, first of all, it was announced like almost 3 years ago, which is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Or 2.5 years ago or whatever. And I remember that trailer being really good, and it's still really good. And
I don't remember it, but I will go.
If you looked it up, you would be like, "Oh, this is a good."
It's like him in the flames or something.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, yeah.
It's a good trailer. I like it. And then they did the E3 demo 2 years ago,
and
it was like, okay, cool. Not sure. Not a lot of info in that E3 thing, and then then it just disappeared for 2 years. And then they did their state of play, whatever it was, in June, and showed it, and I was like, oh, it's an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah, it really is.
I mean, and so it went from being like, I'm not sure what this game is to, oh, I really, 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 really know what this game is. And I think that state of play was actually really good for just putting the brain in the right place. I watched that and I was like,
expectations,
Yeah. I watched it and I was like, okay, this looks like an Assassin's Creed game with a really good, visually good setting. And maybe the combat will be fun. And I was thinking by mid-June, especially after The Last of Us, especially as we were getting close to Ghost of Tsushima, I was like, yeah, I'm down. I don't like Assassin's Creed games anymore. And I don't really like Ubisoft games anymore. And I haven't for years. And I don't play a lot of them. So I sort of went in expecting to have a decent time with it because I was in the mood, and I'm not often in the mood for these types of games. And I would say I did. I think I had a totally fine time with it.
I'd agree. I should clarify that I believe you have beaten the game.
I did beat the story, yes.
I only finished the first island.
Yeah.
I was pretty thorough with that island. I did all the question marks I could find, and I cleared out every single Mongolian,
outpost.
Occupied.
Did you do all the side quests in that zone as well?
I believe so. They're all gone from the map.
So it's pretty much a clear map now.
Yeah, I think so. The fog. There's still fog there. I didn't, switch to the traveler's attire every single time because it was kind of annoying.
If you clear out all of the encampments, it reveals all the fog from the map.
Maybe I have then. Maybe I just aren't aware of the fact that I did 100% the first island.
Maybe you did. Yeah. Okay.
But it's not a case of me not beating the game because I disliked it.
Mm-hmm.
As you alluded to just a second ago, me and you just aren't really the biggest fans of the Assassin's Creed genre anymore. I think everyone has had their moments with that genre. You literally cannot avoid it. And I was there. I enjoyed Assassin's Creed 1, 2, some of the Ezio, and then Black Flag, and then I was out.
Well, you played Origins.
Yeah, I came back. I came back for Origins, and now I'm back out again.
But you also still have enjoyed Far Cry, where I haven't.
Yes.
And Watch Dogs, where I haven't. So I would say if anything, you're the one that is more favor of this
open
genre.
world.
Yeah.
But it's definitely closer to Assassin's Creed than its own unique open world concept. And this review's probably going to be close to, if anyone listened to our Outer Worlds review, where I didn't enjoy Outer Worlds because it felt to me like just a retread of a genre I've played many, many times. And it didn't bring anything new or innovative to the genre. And I don't feel strictly the same about Ghost of Tsushima, but I don't feel far off from that.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
And if you don't have fatigue of the open world Assassin's Creed genre, if you're a fan of Assassin's Creed, this will probably be your game of the year. Because it's probably the best Assassin's Creed in some regards.
Yeah.
In a lot,
in
Assassin's
a lot of
Creed
ways, I would say, yeah.
Incredible environmental artists. But, when we get to that point of the review, there's some competition. But anyway, now I've done that little prelogue. There is combat, graphics, and then, side stuff. I think it's quite an easy game to break down. So, where do you want to start?
It's just combat. Why not? You do a lot of it. I think...
Yes, that is the game. The whole game.
Well, I would say I do like that if you do side stuff, if you do the question marks, you don't end up doing a lot of combat. Obviously, the Mongol outposts are combat.
Yeah,
but I appreciate that there's a decent amount of stuff to just wander around and do, without combat. I like that.
Yeah.
And I would say broadly that I like the combat in this game. Solid. I think it's solid. I don't like Assassin's Creed combat, not modern Assassin's Creed combat. I just don't think it feels good at all. And I don't like most melee combat. And a little bit early on, I was sort of mixed on the combat, and I was like...
Yes, I'd agree.
Especially because there's no lock-on early on is strange, but you don't really miss it after a few hours. And well, I didn't. Yeah, I should say it. I did not find myself missing it after a few hours. But early on, I was sort of like, okay, this combat is a little frustrating, but also I liked the initial sort of feel of like deliberateness in, not so much that it's not like a Sekiro, you have to be deliberate, but I like just you press a button and you just do like one swipe, or maybe two, and you kill someone early on. I like sort of these, I don't know what the right words are, but it doesn't feel spammy to me.
Yeah, I get you.
It feels, a little bit more like press button, wait, press. It feels sort of...
That's how you are supposed to do like all melee combat games, just a little.
No, I know, but they just the combination of sound effects and animations and attacks, it feels swift and sort of precise in a way that something like Assassin's Creed just never does to me. It just feels like Assassin's Creed just feels really squishy, and Tsushima feels much more slicey and precise in a nice way.
Oh, it's definitely better than Ubisoft stuff.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think if I hadn't enjoyed the combat fine enough, despite some problems with it, I would not have gone very far in this game. So before we probably turn to dunking on the combat for all the weird things that are maybe wrong with it, I would say broadly, I had a pretty solid time with just the pure combat, which is more than I can say for the majority of these style of games. So
fair.
Check off, good check mark, good job, Sucker Punch.
I would say at the beginning I didn't like the combat. I had a weird perception in my mind that, and I don't know if this is because of the footage I saw of the combat. I think it was because I saw the standoff mechanic, which I do like. It gets a bit repetitive after a while, but I still think it's, at least interesting and different. Mm-hmm. But when I saw that, for some reason, I thought the combat was going to be a bit more It's like that lethal difficulty that just came out, where it's like you die in one hit, but your enemies go down super quick.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, the enemies do go down really quick. You are an absolute fucking monster in this game.
Yeah.
But you are kind of a bit of a sponge. I was just a bit disappointed by how easy the combat was in this game. And it was an issue for like the first chunk of that first island, because I never used stealth because I just thought it was pointless and it was so slow and unnecessary, and it was uncreative. That part of the game, maybe skipping a little bit ahead here, but the stealth component is just kind of, it's like The Last of Us.
Yeah,
go up,
I think we
triangle.
joked in The Last of Us that we never want to stealth walk through grass again, and I played this entire game running in, hitting the challenge all remaining enemy buttons, like come and fight me. There was almost, they force it on you sometimes.
It's because we're honorable samurai, Jameson.
Exactly. Well, the story will get there, but
I'm sure, yeah.
Certainly disagrees. But yes, I barely engaged with the stealth stuff. Well.
I was just expecting a bit more of a reactive, punishing combat than a Batman, Assassin's Creed kind of. I mean, you can't take a lot of hits, but very quickly you get a build where you'll get a lot of resolve back from doing X and Y, and then you can just heal yourself and all this stuff, and very quickly you get very overpowered. But after the initial disappointment, I just kind of went with it, adjusted my, what I was expecting from the game. And I kind of like the fact that you're just an absolute machine in this game, and you just shred enemies apart.
Absolutely.
And I
agree.
think it is on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I want to compliment the game on is I really like that enemies just shit their pants in this game sometimes. I really like that. Because there's always this strange immersion-breaking stuff in games like Assassin's Creed where you will cut down 30 of an enemy's army right in front of this guy's face. You'll kill all his friends, and he is this lowly little guy with a sword in his hand, and he just runs at you. And it's like, you just watched me slay 40 people in front of you, and you're still just as enthusiastic as ever to come at me with your little sword. And it just doesn't make any sense. And I like in Ghost of Tsushima that sometimes the enemies just cack themselves and cower in fear. And you feel like an absolute monster in this game. And initially, I was kind of hoping for, not From Software, but just something a bit more deliberate and stylish. And to me, it kind of did feel a little bit Batman.
Oh, yeah.
Just Assassin's Creed-y. And I wasn't having... There's less variety at the beginning of the game. And I found it easier. But as the game goes on, you get a pretty fun and versatile set of tools. And you're kind of just toying with the enemies. I never needed to use my tools, because you can just block 90% of the attacks, and as you go through the skill tree, you learn how to block even more of them. The orange attacks just kind of fade away to just the brutes. So I'm just when I'm using my arsenal of attacks and tools, it just feels like I'm fucking with these guys, it's unnecessary to me. And I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Yes, I think that's a positive, and that's I think that's smart design with what this game is, which is a broad market, easy on the brain, appealing, check off the boxes game. And it's nice to have that feeling of just, I not to get ahead of myself slightly, but I put a little list together of weirdly specific ways in which this game is an Assassin's Creed game. And one of the things on that list is you become a giant Beyblade or blender of death. You just and that was more specific to the older Assassin's Creed formula, because I mean I'm sure you become that as well in the new games, but I haven't played them as much. But I always sort of like that, with the Ezio games. You spend a few hours being stealthy, but then by the midpoint in that game, you just drop down and you're just you just sort of hold a button or two and you just spin around and you're double blading everyone and slicing and and you just spin around and you just fucking murder everyone in 30 seconds. And you just feel like a giant Beyblade of death. And Ghost of Tsushima is definitely that way as well. You just, there's a few hours of learning, and then you are just, you're just killing everyone.
Yeah.
I would say, sort of semi-related to that, maybe one of my bigger problems with the combat and the progression is that really early on, I felt like I hit a spot where I was good. Like, and I didn't need anything else. I got really quickly, like, I swear it was the first 2 gold charms that I got was you heal out of combat. So you never have to pop resolve when you're out of combat to get back up to full HP. And you restore a moderate amount of HP every time you kill an enemy.
Yeah, yes.
And I got both of those in like the first 10 hours, and I never swapped them out. And...
Oh, so, sorry to interrupt you, but I swapped out the healing outside of combat one with opening the window of the perfect parry.
I only just got that one. So
really?
I just got that charm just like 2 days ago. I think... Yeah, no, I just got that one, yeah.
That kind of does turn it into, like, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah. And so, I was just, you just tank everything. Like, I wouldn't even look at my health in most fights. And I got that, that circle triangle heavy attack, the, like, I don't know what it's called. And...
It's cool.
And the only stance that I found was necessary was the shield one. And I had spec'd that out very early on. And I just, every upgrade I got, I was just like, from probably the 10 or 12 hour mark in, I mean, I don't really know how far in I was, but early on, it was just like, for the rest of the game, it felt like I was just putting skill points in because I had them.
Yeah.
And you get your little throwing daggers and your sticky tar bomb, and you just go in and you just spin it up and let it loose, and you just spin your katana and throw your knives and sticky tar bomb and a triangle circle heavy attack like 4 times in a row because you've got max resolve, and I might as well spend it on something. And that it was fun all the way through, but it is always disappointing when you feel like Outer Worlds. 10 hours into a 30, 40, 80, 100 hour game, whatever it is, and you're like, I'm good. Mission accomplished. Like I am the ghost of Tsushima now. I win. Like I'm just a death machine. It kills the desire. It kills that loop of like, a skill point. What should I spend it on and get more powerful? It's just like, I don't need to be more powerful. I'm good. Which is, it's a little disappointing when that happens.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But it was still fun pretty much all the way through for me to just go in and fuck everyone up.
Yeah. Let's get into some problems that I have with the combat system. So, the stance system.
Yeah.
I think it's a really clever way to make the player feel like they're doing something when it doesn't really matter. Well, it does kind of matter, but it just feels like a thing that was put in place to add player agency to the combat when there is no thinking or planning really required. And another annoying thing is, did you ever get the pop-ups where you would use an incorrect stance on an enemy, and this fucking obnoxious, like, paused screen would pop up and tell you, like, use this? I'm like, I'm 40 hours in. I'm not. It felt like it, by the way. And, like, I get it. I understand that I'm not supposed to kick the little soldier with the sword. I'm supposed to poke him. But I like the kick. It's fun. The kick attack is fun. So why are you putting in systems with different attacks? Like, if you just don't let people like mess around and experiment with them.
Yeah, those pop-ups are really they're really annoying. And
that
there's
felt
no way to turn them
Ubisoft,
off.
where it's like, this is how you have to play the game. Don't experiment with combat. It's rock, paper, scissors, and there's like no flexibility.
Yeah, like I said, with I spec'd into the shield, the water stance, I think is the shield one, and I almost never switched off of it because you just don't need to.
How many pop-ups did you see?
I only got it like 3 or 4 times.
God, I got
but like, you don't really need to mix it up all that much. I mean, sure, you break their whatever a little faster, but like, I also have throwing knives and sticky bombs and archer bows and 50 other things that, the stance system. I don't really know that it doesn't really feel like it adds anything.
No. Yeah, that's my
it just
problem
sort of
with it.
feels superfluous, where it's like they've got this huge skill tree, but like it doesn't really. I'm sure on a harder difficulty, you maybe have to engage with it more, but normally you just slice and dice everyone with whatever stance. It doesn't really matter.
It just kind of felt like artificial agency to me.
Yeah.
Where it's put there to make it feel like you're doing something, but like I'm not 4 years old. I see a guy with a spear pressing like R2 and triangle doesn't make me feel like I've made like a good strategic choice. I don't know. I just thought it was pointless, and the pop-ups really fucking piss me off.
Yes, I specifically wrote down that those pop-ups are really goddamn annoying.
I had a real problem with no lock-on camera.
Okay, yeah.
I really, really hate it. I don't know what they were thinking, because a lock-on isn't... it's not forced when it's in From games or other, melee combat games. It's optional. You don't have to use it. So why not just put it in the game so that I'm not wrestling with a camera while trying to engage in combat? It just adds this bizarre out of immersion aspect to the combat, which is me controlling this physical camera and like trying to put myself in a position so that, okay, I don't want to keep touching the right stick. It was just like, why not just let me focus on someone? I don't understand what they were thinking. I do think I saw some sort of article where they tried to explain it as it makes you faster in combat, it flows better. But just, you don't have to use it. A big part of learning the flow of From Software games is there is a time to use lock-on and a time not to use lock-on. Because sometimes you don't always want to be forced into facing a certain direction. You want to have freedom of movement. And why not just put it in there as an option? Because I had so many times where the camera just sucked ass in this game. And it was like this extra thing to focus on. I just didn't get it.
I missed it a lot early on. And then acclimated to it and just didn't find myself missing it. But I completely agree. I don't know why it's just not there. Because, I mean, later on, like, you're fighting a lot of enemies. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you want to focus down on one guy and, it says, like, press in the direction of the guy you want to fight. And it'll sort of, you'll sort of, like, you're more likely to hit him. But it's like, just let me lock onto him.
Yeah, I had quite a few occasions with the hold down triangles attacks where I would just miss. I would just swing at someone and just miss them, or go for the wrong person and then you get a fucking pop-up. And just, I don't get it. Like, lock on immediately, it's not like you're not copying From Software. It's just in games because it makes sense to be able to target someone in combat.
Because your hands can only do so much. Like, it's like auto aim with first person shooters. Like, it's there because it's a controller. Same like lock on in a third person melee game. It seems like a quality of life thing. Like, I thought we had hit a point where it was just like borderline mandatory. It's just it's just in every one of those games, because why wouldn't it be? You have to hit the buttons, and when you're hitting the buttons, you can't adjust the camera, so you let the game adjust the camera for you. I mean, it's very simple. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I don't know why it's not in. It's a very strange omission.
It doesn't have to be, forced. Just let the player have options.
Yeah.
One small thing, and I want to know if this was a personal issue. I had a really hard time kicking enemies off of ledges.
Yeah.
I kept trying to do it, and sometimes I actually had success, and they would like topple over a ledge. And other times they would just like hit this invisible wall when I was doing the spear kick. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of lame. It was just kind of disappointing. Like, you put in a kick, and the Assassin's Creed game, Odyssey...
Yes, I was going to say,
it literally was famous for,
it was pretty good.
For the big Spartan kick. It was all the trending Reddit GIFs of people, that famous one where you have a boss fight and they just kick them off a cliff.
You just kick them off the ledge. I did that when I played that mission, and it was great. It was hilarious.
It's set up just to do that. And
yes, yeah.
You're not to be rude, but you're kind of copying Assassin's Creed. You're going for that genre. Yeah. So why is it just... I don't know if it was just me, but it just didn't feel like it wanted it to happen. Every time it did happen, it just felt like broken.
I tried it a couple of times early on and managed to do it once, but and then I basically just stopped doing it because it never seemed to work. They just hit an invisible wall, and you'd have to try like 3 or 4 times in different angles to get them to actually fall off, which is a shame. I will say, this is just sort of a semi-tangent. I respect modern Assassin's Creed for how much it's okay with just going off the rails with its combat. AC Odyssey, I mean, my God, does it ever go crazy? Crazy. Like, it is not worried about realism or immersion. I mean, early on in Odyssey, you get an ability that you can just fall from literally any height. Any height at all, and you take no fall damage. One of the last skills on the skill tree in the stealth area in Odyssey is when you crouch, you literally turn invisible.
Okay.
You know, and I appreciate that, and I feel like Ghost of Tsushima could have done for a little. It could have taken a little bit of that, you know, just maybe, like the Spartan kick thing. Just make it stupid. Like, it's funny and fun. Let us do that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of verticality on the map, so the situation comes up pretty frequently where I want to, kick this guy in the face off a cliff. And it just, I don't know.
It just sort of makes the game feel a bit jank.
Yeah.
When you do that, and it ruins the sort of cool factor. You know, you go.
I want to be creative in my combat.
Yes.
And the pop-ups mixed with like these feelings of slight limitations.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just felt like the combat looks really cool, and there's a lot of options and tools and toys and things to do. It just kind of feels like it just doesn't. It wants you to play the way they intended, and it's just. Can we get past this? Like, can I just experiment in my games? Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of like my small ones, and then there's the obvious big one.
Archer!
Oh yeah, that wasn't the one I was gonna say.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to take it away? Because I'm gonna leave the big one for last.
Okay, I'm not sure what the big one is. When you say it, I'm sure I'll understand.
Yes, you will.
A few little ones, I would say, quickly. The parry button timing to me sometimes felt weird.
Yeah.
I felt like I'd have to hit it earlier than it seemed.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Without that charm, I would agree. When I got the charm, it felt normal, but without it, I was like, I swear I hit that button.
Like, you have to... it really did feel like I had to anticipate and just be hitting it before the blue flash happened to get those perfect parry. Yeah, the parry system, it just felt a little weird to me sometimes. And sometimes I would be parrying and I would just get attacked anyways. And I don't know. Maybe I wasn't facing them fully. I'm not sure. That stuff was a little strange. That's stealth related. I'll come back to the stealth in a little bit.
Okay.
Because I know you had a few problems.
I mean, I didn't really do it, so I haven't got much to say on it.
Well, that's more related to the stealth missions.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Fuck.
There's one thing you get later on, which I don't think you've got. No, you wouldn't have gotten because it was fairly late in Act 2 on the second area. You get it's called the Ghost Meter, and it basically it's like a super ability. You click the 2 sticks in, and the whole screen goes 21:9. Letterboxed, black and white, and then you get 3 insta kills on any enemy type. So you slash them, and the screen flashes red, and it's like a stylistically cool thing, and it's fun to and all the enemies like really freak out when you do it.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
And it's a good moment in the campaign, and it's fun. It's a fun mechanic as well to have in your for fights. My problem with it is that how you get it is by either you kill a leader from stealth, which, never going to do that because stealth. And the other way you get it is you have to kill, I think it's 7 enemies without taking damage, and then you fill the meter. And if you take damage after it's full, it undoes it. You have to redo it.
Okay.
And I don't like anything in games that is like a kill streak, where you're you're making progress, and then you get hit once and you lose it. And it's just like a weird brain thing. I just don't like seeing the bar go down. Even though I'm not using it much, I'm not really trying for it. Just seeing the bar like flash down to 0 after it's full or when it's 1 away from full, it just sort of pisses me off. And it's just one of those small, weird game design things that whenever there's a bar in a game that...
Sounds easy, mate.
You get hit once and it goes away. It's like, oh, fuck off. And no, that's pretty much it for open combat stealth. I did write down also that I enjoyed the combat more than something like Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's fair. It brings more to the table when it comes to evolving Batman and Assassin's Creed, I think, than Spider-Man did.
Yeah. And Spider-Man also, I just had that weird mental screw up where the control scheme was just slightly different than Batman, and my Batman muscle memory was weirdly... It's deep in there for some reason.
Yeah,
Anyways.
yeah.
What's the big one? Oh, aside from archers.
Just lack of variety.
Okay, yeah.
There's like 4 enemies in the game.
Yep.
And you just fight the same guys over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's just kind of boring to just fight the same guys over and over and over again. And there's one way to kill them, otherwise the game tells you off. Yeah. And like the only thing that evolves in the game is how much you kind of fuck around with them before you kill them all, inevitably. And I just don't know, like there's bears, but I just kind of...
I mean...
They die in like one bow here as well.
Yeah,
what the hell?
especially when you get the longbow, you just zing them right in the head and they're dead.
And like there's dogs, but like dogs are just weird. You just slash at them.
And there's only like 6 of them in the whole game, I felt like.
Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of got boring just killing the same guys over and over again.
Yeah, I think we had talked about it earlier, and it's like, why... What is it with games this gen where there's just like 3 enemies in video games?
Yeah.
And it's, there's the default guy, there's a guy with a shield, a guy with a spear, a guy with an archer, or the bow rather, and then the big boys, the Chungus that takes lots of health, and you're like, and like The Last of Us was the same way. There's like 2 enemies in that game, and they all look the same as well. They all have the exact same model and aesthetic, and it's like, I don't know why it's so hard for a lot of devs, and that's definitely the one thing that sets, or one of the many things that sets From Software games apart, is that they have like 70 enemies in their games, and they're all completely unique. And
yeah, it just didn't feel like there was any learning for me to do past like 5 to 10 hours.
Oh yeah, no, totally, 100%. And
I don't know.
It's weird that they... Yeah, it's just weird to me that... Like, I get it. The setting, okay, I understand.
Grounded, historical, yeah.
But, like, you're going to spend all this time, like, years, like 5, 6 years, making a game that is, I don't know, 40, 50, 80 hours long. Like, there's 4 enemies...
Yeah.
It's just weird. I would understand it more in this and The Last of Us if the combat was really, really infrequent. Like if in The Last of Us there were like, 8 combat encounters, and the enemies were all the same, I'd get it. But in both games, there's so much combat. There are so many Mongol outposts in this game, and they're all the same. They're all exactly the same, except for the in Act 2 you have to fight Ronin, so they're sort of similar moveset to you. Okay,
that's cool.
But spoilers, like, they die really easily. Just like everything else in the game, You throw some tar pit on explosives and then shoot them with an arrow, or just slice and dice, and it works just fine.
Yeah, I just, it's kind of the reason I haven't played more, because I just... Yeah. Like, I've seen a couple of things that happen later on in the game. I saw that triple attack thing you mentioned. But right. I don't know, I just found it hard to motivate myself to play more when I was 1/3 of the way through, and I just kind of felt like I'd seen everything. Yeah, I know that's not technically true. I'm sure there's a few little things, but man, the first I didn't took me like 20 hours, and I don't see 60 hours of me playing this game. No.
Yeah, so I played through this game very weirdly. I was playing like very casually early, and then I was like, okay, I want to do a beauty video. And the next area, the areas are locked off via story missions, and also the skybox is full of these ugly, annoying, like 2D smoke decals tied to enemy encampment, so I played it weirdly and like beelined it through the story and did all the enemy encampments in the two areas. And I would have stopped playing this a lot earlier if it weren't for the desire to do a little video. The only reason I played through the story was because of the video, and the only reason I did so much of the combat side stuff was because I wanted to clear up the skybox for the video. And,
yeah, fair.
And so yeah, I definitely would not have played. I probably wouldn't have gotten past the first island in this. I probably would have stopped with like most AC games and most Ubisoft games after about 10 to 15 hours, honestly. I might have poked at it. I probably would have poked at it a little more than those other games, I reckon. But I played Saturday for like 40 minutes, and then Sunday I booted it up and I looked at the map screen and I was like, no, I'm done with this game. And I just closed it, and because I still have like a couple dozen question marks on the main island. Okay. I haven't done a single, like I've done like 5 question marks in the middle. I have done none in the north. I haven't done a side quest since 8 hours into the game. And I'm just sort of, I'm just done with it, especially because Horizon is out on PC in a few days, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to play that. So that sort of ties into the other things for me that are not combat, which is, I mean, broadly, I think the bummer with this game for me is that it lacks anything really special or standout. Visually, graphically, yes. But for me, even a lot of the Sony, like even something like Spider-Man, which is a very, very familiar game, that I actually didn't super love, I was pulled through it because the story was really good.
And the swinging is like a nice novelty factor to the game.
But the thing that kept me through Spider-Man and made me want to keep playing Spider-Man was the story. And I think the story and storytelling in that game is really good. Yeah. And then, something like Horizon has good story, great world, character design, enemies, stuff like that. And I feel like a lot of Sony's games this gen have had something really, really special in them. There've been a couple that, like Days Gone, obviously, no. But I would say aside from that, from Bloodborne onwards for the last 5 years, all their games have had something compelling and sort of special in them, even though there's a lot of familiarity between those games. And Ghost to me just doesn't feel like it has anything there. Like, the combat's fine. The visuals are really good, but like visuals are so surface level, it's not compelling content. I think the story stuff is all really boring, which is probably a talking point there. And the side content is also boring.
Yeah, so some of it's the side quests is just like killing Mongols, but like some of the activities are, I would say, endearing.
Yeah,
after the first 5, or I should say before you do more than 5.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we can just go through them. I don't have like a lot to say on the side activities, but
no, me neither.
I kind of like the I was gonna say world building, but I don't know what to call the hot springs and the haikus. It's just kind of wholesome, endearing.
Yeah,
they're kind of cute.
Yes.
Peaceful. I don't know. They're just
sort
nice.
of related to that note. I wrote something down that I think applies to a lot of stuff in this game. It reminds me a little bit of the Metro games in how I find it endearing. There's a lot of stuff in this game that feels like it's really going for it, but it's just not quite hitting it.
Yeah.
But in a way that I find nice. And yes, a lot of the side content is really peaceful and pleasant. And I agree. I like that stuff. The problem with the side content for me is that it's just like the rest of the game. It's just there's like 4 of them, and that's it.
And there's a lot of them.
And there are so many.
49 fox dens, may I say. 49.
Yeah, and honestly, probably my biggest problem with them is that there is no sense of discovery to them, because they are all tied to... There is all something that guides you right to them.
Yeah.
I think if the foxes were rare and every now and then they'd lead you to one of those things, or if the birds every now and then showed up, it would be good, and I would be okay with that. But instead, literally every single thing has a bird that flies you to it or a fox that leads you there. And it makes it so that it just doesn't feel like I am doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like the game is on cruise control and I'm barely even playing. You know, open worlds are cool because there's a sense of discovery to them, and Ghost doesn't feel like you're ever discovering anything. It just feels like, I mean, you literally are being led by the hand to everything in that game.
For some reason, I didn't really follow those birds very much, because I don't know, they just popped up at annoying times when I was on the way to do something else. Or I had some like weird moments where a bird would just lead me to an outpost I already know about. I'm like, what am I looking at here, bird? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I kind of ignored them after a while. And the one side activity which I really liked, which I don't think would have resonated with you that much, is the shrines. Because for some reason
the fox shrines.
No, not the fox shrines. The on the mountain things. They're called shrines, aren't they?
Oh, those ones where you just hold forward and you do Uncharted climbing.
Yeah.
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
They're fine, but
I like
them.
Yeah. Some of them are a bit more out there than others. They take longer to get around and figure out. I can't help it, man. I like that shit.
I know
me.
You do.
I don't know why. It's just like satisfying, like beamlines, like mild puzzle. I don't know why I like them, but I do. I do.
Yeah.
I like the shrines.
It's fair. I get it.
Fox dens can fuck off, but I like the shrines.
Before we forget, we forgot to mention that the archers fucking suck in this game.
Yeah, they're annoying.
They suck.
They're really annoying.
They like almost ruin the combat half the time because they're just shooting constantly, and they're no fun at all. Take them out of the game.
Yeah, especially when the only way to kind of counter them is to shoot them yourselves with a bow.
Yeah, or
and
run at them and slice them.
Yeah. That's what you kind of eventually do, because they keep interrupting your animation of pulling the bowstring back. So,
God, there's nothing more infuriating than getting staggered by out of your animation over and over. Holy fuck.
So you just have to be like, all right, wait, everyone, I'm going to sprint all the way over to this part of the combat area, slash this guy like twice, and then just come back.
Yeah, they suck.
They do.
They should have been much more infrequent, but instead they're literally everywhere. Side stuff, and then story stuff, side content, the story stuff, nope, boring, not interested, and the main story, nope, boring.
I could not tell you which missions are main and which missions are side quests. They just all seem the same to me.
Yeah.
They all kind of blend together.
I wish the game was not so one note with its story stuff. Every single part of that game is just like the most self-serious, no, we are noble samurai warriors, we must get rid of the Mongols. Like, that's every mission. And it's just I can't pay attention to it. Like it just bleeds together into this mush of, oh, I am doing another self-serious mission with this person now. What has happened? I'm like, I don't fucking care. And there's no skip cutscene button, which really, you should be allowed to skip cutscenes in video games. I'm sorry. Like, I get it. You spent a lot of time doing voiceover for this game, but like, I would probably do more side quests if I could just skip all the cutscenes. Because they're just not interesting at all. And the main story, so I have finished the main story, and obviously it's not, whatever. But like, just a few words on it. It's not very interesting. Spoilers. And the entire story is basically your uncle sees you doing one naughty thing that isn't noble, and he's like, I have disowned you now. And that's the whole game. And it's like, there's a lot of story emphasis on how you've become like this ignoble, this naughty, bad samurai that's doing all these thievy ghost things. And it's like, and they force them on you in the main story, like in two things, and that's it. And it was like a weird disconnect, because in main combat I was just always just fucking running in there doing samurai stuff. And then the entire story is just, you get your army, and then you go and kill the guy in an underwhelming mission, and then it ends.
I haven't beaten the story, but is the game trying to make you feel like you're a bad guy? Is it like a Last of Us 2 type thing? Because the Mongols are kind of nasty bastards, so I didn't really ever feel guilt about, just doing what you got to do against 40 of them at once. It's
sort of just like the vigilante sort of, he's... No, everyone loves you on the island except for your not dad uncle, who really hates you. And... Maybe this game's good for history buffs, because isn't this based on real events? No? Okay. Well, it is, but it's like extremely not accurate at all, apparently. Okay. I mean, the katana didn't even exist at this time in history, so... Oh, damn. Apparently, anyways. But yeah, and then it gets like really melodramatic near the end of the game in a way that like I kind of respect a little bit. I'm not gonna get like detailed spoilers here, but I just wanted to say it. So I guess if you really care about Ghost of Tsushima spoilers, plug your ears for 30 seconds. The very end of this game is like two grown-ass men crying because they are like so morally opposed to each other, and it is like heartbreaking to them, and they can't like see each other's ways of life. And it's like, I kind of respect the effort, even though I don't give a shit about the content, and it's not like amazing, and it's kind of corny in fact, but it again is that Metro, it's like they're really going for it at a few times in the story with how dramatic it is, and it's like they're not quite there, but also their heart is in the right place, and I respect that. But yeah, I just wish it had any part of the game was like really special, and they could have done it with story. Maybe you could do a lot of good side quests, but they're not interesting, and it's I think the thing that I was hoping most that would be the special thing in this game would be the presentation outside of graphics, like more in the mood. Okay. If you go back and watch the original announcement trailer, I think it has this great mood to it. It's very cinematic. Like the cutscenes are beautifully framed and shot, and I think I remember when that trailer came out, I was like, they look like they have really, watched some Japanese cinema of old and are trying for that style. And it's a bummer to me that in game there is like almost no style to the presentation. Visually, it's obviously excellent. The duels have a cool little cutscene lead up that you see 70 times. Yeah. But 90% of the cutscenes are like these really weird pulled back wide angle panning shots where the characters are just talking to each other with no animations. Yeah, it reminds me of Mafia 3. Yeah, that stuff is like really... And at first I was like, oh, it's just the side quests that are this way. But it's not. It's like all the main... You said you can't tell main missions apart from side stuff, and that's part of it, is that there's no uptick in presentation quality, Like, normally in a big open world RPG, it's like, okay, yeah, the side quests are just going to be talking heads, but then, you get some more action in the cutscenes. And the opening of the game even starts really well as well with that style. The charge down the beach is really good. And then this game also has like the best title card of the gen, maybe. Like that title card and the framing and the music, I was like, fuck yeah, let's play some Ghost of Tsushima. And the rest of the game is like this, it feels cheap at times, this game, in specific small little ways, and one of those is the presentation, and it bums me out that there's not, that they didn't translate that. I encourage people to go back and watch that. I think it was the Paris Games Week Ghost of Tsushima reveal trailer. I don't know, like the story stuff, the dialogue is exactly as it was in game, but just the presentation of it's just got a good mood to it, you know?
Yeah.
And a game with a good mood, I can be carried through a game with a good mood, and it is like halfway there. Because visually it's very beautiful, and it has a nice peaceful vibe a lot of the times when you're wandering the world, which is good. But it's just not quite there.
I would say outside of, I know you're being maybe a bit more specific towards, the cutscenes.
Yeah.
But I think the open world in this game is just like absurdly pretty to strut around.
Oh, definitely.
It's, man, I've only explored one and like a third of an island, and I didn't expect there to be as much visual variance for a what do you call this, Japanese feudal Japan.
Right. Yes.
I just didn't really think there'd be that much variety, especially when it's set on one island. But I think they do a really just amazing job of keeping the like color palette and the visual setting consistently varied and interesting as you strut around your horse. And I just think this game has a really amazing like cinematography vibe to the landscape.
when you're
out
and when you're just out and playing, I think it really nails that stuff. Yeah.
God, it feels like they designed the entire map around photo mode. Like, it was a huge
really
selling point of the game and their design around it. And they're like, everywhere you look, there needs to be kind of like a sight line which would line up really well with a silhouette of X and Y. And they like, it just looks so good. And I think I don't like to say graphics make a game better, but I probably would have stopped playing earlier if it didn't look this good.
Oh yeah,
it looks really fucking good.
I literally played through like the majority. I mean, I played through the entire story and did a majority of the Mongol outposts purely because it looked so good. Like that was driven by the beauty video, literally. Like, it looks incredible, and it's a testament to good art direction, and
lighting.
How much you can do with lighting and particles still.
And color.
And color, yes. And it was nice to play a game with color after The Last of Us, that's for sure.
Yeah. Also, if you play this with an HDR TV, it's almost absurd. It looks like a fucking sci-fi game that time. It's so bright and over the top in a way that I really like.
A little. Yeah, no, it's good. I think like the visuals cannot be understated, especially because it doesn't translate over video very, very well because of YouTube compression. It is an amazingly beautiful game, and I think that for me it only lasted so long, and I've obviously played more than you have. And after a certain point, it's like, yep, there's another beautiful, meaningless visual. That's sort of where it ended up. Where I would be compelled to play through this. I think I have it in me to like do everything in this game if it had just that something special to it,
Yeah, and I know what you mean.
After, I don't know how much playtime I have because there's no way to check. After X amount of playtime, the visuals and the combat it all just sort of stopped being interesting.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it really is tremendously good to look at. And also, I have a note down. I like the music. There's a lot of just nice music when you're wandering around as well. It's got the game has good vibes when you're just on your horse,
playing your little flute.
Playing your little flute, yes. And I think those good vibes sort of they highlight the lack of style in the storytelling even more because it feels so cinematic, unscriptedly cinematic. And then when it gets to scripted, it's like a basic cable TV drama, maybe, maybe. Like
usually it's like reverse for most games.
Yes. So yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. I don't know what else there is. I have like a bunch of little things, but like...
Yeah, me too. I have little things. Can I list 2 little things?
Go for it.
Oh, man, I don't know why they didn't do this. So in the game, there is a side activity where you can cut bamboo.
Best side activity.
It's a good little side activity. It's really satisfying.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun.
And I noticed that there's like proper physics with the bamboo. I don't know if you had it happen, but one time I did it, one of the cut off pieces of the bamboo just stayed where it was. I was like, wow.
Oh, neat.
It's such a clean cut. It didn't even like fall to the ground. So I tried to cut bamboo in the game and it doesn't do anything.
Oh no, I never tried.
And it's like, come on, man. You made it like, it isn't I'm pretty sure it isn't a scripted, copy and paste animation. I'm pretty sure it's real physics. So just, come on, there's a bamboo cutting minigame. I would have cut bamboo in the game. It's the first thing I tried was to slash some bamboo. Like, wouldn't that be so fun?
$5 says the PS5 upgrade, you can cut the bamboo, and they couldn't do it because of the PS4's CPU.
Maybe, but there wasn't like fields. Well, actually, I'm seeing the whole map, so maybe there was like a whole field of bamboo, and you can't cut down the whole field of physics objects. But
it's a little inside baseball, but like Horizon, the foliage in Horizon didn't react to you when you walked through it on PS4 because of the CPU. It couldn't handle it. On PC, the foliage will now react to you. So I reckon that's probably just like a horsepower limitation. Because I saw other people say that as well. It's like, because it would be really satisfying to, do like Zelda and just run through and just slice up all the bamboo, and then it just is grown back next time.
You're probably right. I'll allow it to pass. It was just kind of like, it was just one of those things that just like stacked up. Tried to kick someone off a cliff, tried to cut bamboo, and I was just like, let me do something. And my last one is, there's a really weird thing in the game which feels borderline broken, where there will be a hostage in a camp, and like you alert the enemies, and then one will run up to kill the hostage, but he never does. He just stands at the hostage and yells at it with his back to you.
Oh, I had him kill them once for me. Only once.
I swear, I had one guy wait there for like 30 seconds. I'm like,
yeah, I would say so.
It feels broken. What if you're going to kill the hostage? What are you doing yelling at him? Like, ah! You have your back to me. And also, as soon as they go into the animation of, the icons on my head, I'm hostage kill man, they just like de-aggro from you, and you can just start like unloading on them. And they don't look at you, and you can just slash the shit out of them. They just turn their back to a deadly samurai. It felt so weird, immersion breaking and broken. That was just really weird to me. I would actually run in, and you could use the hostage as bait, and the people who would aggro to the hostage it was just a free kill. Because you could just slash him in the back. And then you would just wait for another guy to aggro onto the hostage and just repeat it. It felt like untested and broken. That was a really weird part to me.
That's funny.
Yeah, the AI in the game is just a bit, I don't know.
It's not very good. Yeah, it's pretty basic.
Yeah, And also, this is harsh because we just played The Last of Us 2 before this, but the faces, after Last of Us 2, just a bit of, tech withdrawal. And I know that's not fair. Yeah. Naughty Dog is the best in the game. But, like, after Naughty Dog, you just, like, you look at their faces, oof.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I forgot to mention the guiding wind mechanic is really good. Yes. It's really cool.
It's super effective.
Yeah, it's amazing how good it is. And it's probably the one takeaway from the game where you're like, what is the coolest thing Ghost of Tsushima did? And it's that wind mechanic.
Yeah, really like intelligent problem solving with visual design. It's really good.
I always like when someone finds a solution of that is, we don't want a HUD. How do we convey this information? And it's really smart and super effective.
Yeah.
On the flip side, there are a few times where you have, well, there's more than a few, stealth missions, main missions, and you have to get to a specific spot in that mission. And there are a few times where the guiding wind is not active, and there's no objective marker in the HUD either. And so the result is it's a insta-fail stealth mission where I don't know where I'm supposed to be going. Just put a giant indicator on my screen, please, game. Like, just do it. And sometimes it would, and sometimes it wouldn't. And when it wouldn't, oh my god, was it ever frustrating. Don't put insta-fail stealth missions in your video games, people.
No,
like,
what
are we doing?
fucking year is this? Why? Ugh.
I somehow, like, I'm, you know, I don't know how this didn't happen, but I never failed any of those. And I never even had problems with them. I got through them all easily, but that's a miracle. It really is, because I feel like...
There's also tailing missions. Sorry to interrupt.
There's also tailing missions.
There's tailing missions.
So yeah, let me... I made a little list of ways in which this game is weirdly specific to old Assassin's Creed. You get Berserk darts, and also you'll never use them, just like in Assassin's Creed. You use them in the tutorial and then never again. As I said earlier, you become a giant Beyblade of Death. Poison the Grog mission. You can bet that's in the game. Turret missions, tailing missions, insta-fail stealth missions, a friend that makes you cool shit, a la Leonardo da Vinci in Assassin's Creed 2. You have one of those in this game. He's not, a famous historical figure, but he makes you the cool stuff. I don't know if you had this, but unreliable climbing? Because...
yeah. Like, mostly for, like, the tree arms.
Yeah.
I would just fall to the ground.
You have this non-climbing, magnetized non-climbing mechanic where you barely have to do anything, except sometimes it just doesn't work. And then specific to new Assassin's Creed, this game has the instant looting, which I will say every video game should have.
Yeah, I also like its really streamlined currency system. Like, it's just, here's supplies, and iron, and, like, linen. And there's, like, 5... Well, there's a bit more, but it's
and leather,
really, like...
I think, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's really straightforward. A weird compliment, but the menus are all, like, really, I think, nicely streamlined.
Yes, yeah.
Bit specific, but...
And I love that I loved it when I first played Origins, where you just click one button, and there's no animation, you just instantly have it.
Yeah, on the horse as well.
On the horse as well. Really good. Every game should do that. Except, I wish this game knew how to use more than the right trigger for interactions, because I got into a mode where I would just be running through the camps, spamming R2, picking everything up, and then sometimes I would crawl under something.
Yeah.
Because it's the same fucking button.
Yeah.
Like, there are a lot of buttons on the controller, and I feel like this game just knows how to use R2. Anyways, it was a small thing. I
did that.
But it drove me... it happened a lot, and it would annoy me. I like the bamboo strike stuff. I think the haikus are real corny.
I like them, that's it.
And I just click on the first one each time. I just go boop, 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 boop.
Oh, I would make my haiku.
I never did it. I think this would be terrible, but it would also be funny to me, is if you could compose improper haiku, and it would just fail.
Like one syllable in each line.
Yeah. The map is really good. I think Assassin's Creed games are bad about overwhelming. Ubisoft games, rather, are bad about overwhelming with the map, and their fog of war system for slowly revealing things is really effective. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you can fast travel everywhere is amazing as well.
Yeah.
The load times are very good, even though they apparently could have been better, but they stretched them out so you could read their stupid tooltips. What
the fuck was
Bullshit.
That? Great idea.
It's really good about letting you abandon objectives and resume them later on.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's one of the things about Ubisoft games that pisses me off so much is you're not allowed to stray off at all.
Mm-hmm.
And this game, you wander too far, it just pauses the mission, and it changes the icon to a sort of a little arrow symbol, and that's great. Every game should allow you to do that, especially an open world game. You should be able to just walk away. There is a system where the stealthier you play, the more stormy the weather gets.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's broken because I never ever was stealthy, and it's constantly thunderstorming in my game. And this is genuinely one of the reasons I won't play. I've sort of stopped playing it, is because it's constantly thunderstorming, and you can play. You can play
the flute.
You can play the flute, and it clears the weather. And within 90 seconds, it's thunderstorming again. Maybe
it's story progression.
Well, I've beaten the story.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
So that's a bummer. It's a small thing, but it's a weird bummer that it happened. Like, let me see the beautiful blue skies.
Can I be really nitpicky while we're here?
Yeah.
The swimming looks weird.
Yeah.
He doesn't sink under the water at all. It's really odd.
Yeah.
He just floats. Anyway, I'm nitpicking.
The photo mode is extremely good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, last really specific one, but it honestly bugged me like more than it probably should have. It's really weirdly annoying and hard to find merchants at the camps because they don't draw in the objective indicator until you're really close and it's really small.
Yeah, they're not on the map. You
No,
just
and
run
so
around.
I only ever knew where everything was at the Golden Temple, and so I only ever went there.
Yeah, it's a weird choice.
You get like 3 or 4 camps that have everything, and I don't know where anything is there because I would run around. I'm like, just where's the fucking armorer? I cannot find him. Mm-hmm. It's a small thing, but it's just,
I thought the cosmetics in the game were pretty cool. You can like change, pretty much everything. Nice bit of variety.
Yeah, I use the red Clan Sakai samurai armor for that. As soon as I got it,
I can't remember what I went for. I think like white and black or something.
And I also put on, varyingly goofy masks and never saw my guy's face after about the 4-hour mark.
Yeah.
That's it. Those are all my notes. I think.
Yeah, me too.
I had a consistently fine time with it. There were
okay.
there were moments that were better. There were only a couple. And there were moments where I was frustrated, but I don't know where I saw this written. It wasn't regarding this game, but I like the wording. It's like a dull hum of enjoyment, and it's just sort of like, it's July, there's nothing to do, and it occupied, like a week, and I wasn't mad like I was with The Last of Us, and it was fine.
Yeah.
It was fine. Right. I wish it was a lot better, though.
Yeah, I would say I was disappointed by it.
Yeah, I would say I was and wasn't. I think it mostly was exactly what I expected. I was sort of hoping it would have that something special to it, but it just doesn't. I don't.
It's just, I just think it's too long and repetitive.
Oh God, yeah.
Like, why? There's so much stuff in this game. It's so fucking long. I feel like I've played an entire Assassin's Creed worth of content, and I finished the first island. And, I didn't have to 100% it, but I just didn't think there was going to be 2 more islands. The same size.
I probably would 100% it if there was like 50% as much stuff, like 50% or less. I think that's something that Horizon did really well for me. Like, Horizon is very much a Ubisoft game. You have towers, you have outposts, you have, all these things. But like the towers in the game, okay, there's like 6 of them, I think.
Yeah.
There's like maybe a dozen enemy outposts. Like they were restrained, and it felt manageable. And
or like God of War, an even better example.
Yeah, and God of War, less so a Ubisoft game, but it
had
it's
some
a very
side
manageable.
Stuff, and it had, like 5 or less of them, of each one of them.
Yeah, and it's very manageable. And it's just there's like 50 of everything, and everything in this game is interesting. Maybe the first 5 times, and there's 50 of them, and it is way too long. It's way too long. It's way too big, and it should have been 50%, maybe even 30% as much content in there. And I think if they had done that, and if they'd made the side quest stuff and the main story stuff more interesting, and then just left everything else the same except reduced the amount of stuff in it by 50% or more, I probably would have come close to or to 100%ing it. It's. But it just feels like I'm not making any progress. Do like 6 fox dens and bamboo strikes and then zoom out, and I'm like, oh my God, there's still 30 in this southern island alone.
I don't know. My conclusion is I just got bored of it. That's it.
Me too.
But the time I played of it, the 20 hours on that first island, I thought were fine.
Yeah, I would agree completely.
I really liked Infamous, and I just didn't really love Ghost of Tsushima, so it's a bit of a disappointment. I'm not like heartbroken like the people who came out at the end of The Last of Us 2, feeling like someone destroyed their favourite IP. It was just like I was expecting, like, a little bit more.
Yeah, I was expecting to like it more based on how much I liked the Infamous games for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And the Infamous games are not, like the most amazing games ever made, but they're really solid and enjoyable, comfy open world games. And Second Son was good about not having too much. It was a manageable sized game. It's probably because it was a launch game, or more or less. And this game they worked on for 6 years instead of 2 years or whatever. But yeah, I was hoping to. Let's say this: I probably would have preferred a new Infamous game.
Yeah, me too.
But I'm glad that they made something new.
Yeah, whatever.
And we finally got the long-awaited Assassin's Creed Feudal Japan, and it's a good Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah.
I like it more than any other Assassin's Creed game this generation, except for maybe Black Flag. But Black Flag was more like Black Flag kind of sucks, except all the sailing stuff and mood of that game is great.
Yeah.
Whereas this game, I think it's a very solid, older style Assassin's Creed game, and it was yeah. Mm-hmm. Just well.
I'm sure that would be, I'm sure this was a very nice, quick, short episode to put together, Jameson. Just only a 2.5 hour chat about The Last of Us, and then like an hour of Ghost. Just, probably sub 4 hours, a nice quick video to chuck out.
Well, we made it long so that people have something to listen to, because the next episode of this probably won't be until, I don't know, the end of November, where we spend 9 hours talking about the 40 different games that have come out, because August is done. There's nothing worth talking about. We don't need to talk about Horizon or Microsoft Flight Simulator, even though I'm excited for both of those. September has Avengers, but I am not playing that game.
We'll see.
I mean, I'll play the beta
yeah.
and see, and then be like, this game, I don't need to play it. And then, October doesn't start popping off until the end of October. And so the next episode might be a big fall
end
catch-all.
Of the year special.
And
keep on.
Sweet Jesus, there could be a lot of things to talk about. I mean,
I hope so.
Bare minimum, we will theoretically talk about, I don't know, Cyberpunk and Halo, let's say. Mm-hmm. If both of those ship this year.
Yeah.
If not, then we'll be talking about Watch Dogs 3 and
I forgot about
Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And
we're not talking about that.
We're not talking about that game. We're never going to play it.
I'm not playing that game. That's enough Assassin's Creed for like 2 years for me.
Yes. Maybe like 6 years for me.
I'll try Watch Dogs for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so it'll probably be a while before the next episode, but games are weird this year. It's a console launch year. Everyone wants to ship with the consoles, so it'll be a very congested 3 weeks in November probably. Mm-hmm. And a 9-hour long podcast will follow probably in December.
Yeah. But until then you have 4 hours of us talking shit to get you to that point. Hope everyone is doing well in the world in this very strange time. Thank you for listening, and we will see you when things get pretty interesting. It might even, I don't know, include a discussion of the the PlayStation 5. Maybe we're, put in a little review of the console in there. I don't know. We have to figure it out. We also have top 10 of the generation to figure out sometime this year.
Oh my god.
After Cyberpunk. So yeah, if you like these long chats, you're going to have quite a lot of content coming soon. But until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.